This week's episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by East Asia Soft and their extensive line of limited print physical games for PS4 and PS Vita. Each month, East Asia Soft releases popular indie games equipped with sleek, limited edition packaging alongside collectible extras, like original soundtracks, art books, and alternative covers, all for only $34.99 each, with free shipping. Current offerings include the Korean bullet hell title Shikando Soul Eater, the Zelda-inspired action-adventure game Reverie, and the tower defense shooter Xmorph Defense. You can find those and more at playasia.com. That's play-asia.com. Use the code SACRED, that's SACRED, when checking out to get $3 off your order. Why, hello there. To receive each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days earlier than the public, totally ad-free. To have your questions, comments, and concerns read on the air. To hear your name in the end credits, and to score other cool perks. Please consider supporting this show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Not only will your subscription net you benefits for Sacred Symbols and allow this show to continue into the future, but those benefits also carry over to other CLS shows too, including the video game-centric YouTube show SideQuest, the retro and nostalgia-themed podcast Knockback, and the eclectic interview series Fireside Chats. In other words, you're getting insane bang for your buck. Again, that's patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and CLS couldn't and wouldn't exist. Now, on to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, episode 3. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by the beautiful and the luxurious Chris Reagan.
Oh, how's it going, everybody? I'm beautiful. I'm luxurious.
And you
I
are
feel
luxurious.
good about that.
Oh my God, I'm so smitten with you. Chris, how was your weekend? It's Monday. We're recording as we always do on Mondays. How is everything going this past weekend?
Pretty good. Got a lot of work done. Still at the gym. Still doing that.
Yeah, you said you were going to the gym pretty much close to every day.
Yeah, now I'm starting on like every weekday, pretty much.
You doing deadlifts?
Not quite. Not yet. I think I've got to graduate to that, I think.
You're already so skinny. I know we talked about this last week, but I'm just going to harp on it because it's not really fair. You don't have to work out to remain svelte.
Well, I'm a bit of like a skeleton, which is kind of the problem. I kind of want to just like a little bit. I don't want to be like Arnold.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like a Draugr.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, it's a great reference. To me, I was skinny until I wasn't anymore. And yesterday I went to an Italian restaurant with Aaron, Scopa, which I think is in like Venice or Marina del Rey. It's like a really great Italian restaurant. A little expensive, but very good. And I ate so much that I thought I was going to throw up all over the table. Italian
will get you.
Yeah.
It's just bread and amazing. It's amazing. But it's also incredibly just chock full of carbs.
Yeah, it's just all carbs, and it's so weird. Isn't it weird how for many decades everyone thought fat was the culprit, and so they were just eating like carbs, and then no one made the connection for decades why everyone was getting fat.
Fat's actually pretty good for you, and
that's what they say.
Yeah, it's sugar that really kind of messes you up.
Right, exactly. So anyway, you can look pregnant like me, or you can go work out and be svelte like Chris. Chris, before we get into the show this week, I wanted to ask you about one specific thing. I saw you, I don't know if this was a joke or not, but you tweeted out that you had a dream or a nightmare about...
I have very mundane nightmares, I find. Like I'll have a nightmare where I'll wake up and my back hurts, but it's like but that's the dream. And then I'll wake up and my back will be fine. I'm like, why is this happening?
Do you wake up in like a cold sweat?
Like, no, it's like it's you know how like nightmares have like the feeling of a nightmare even if nothing's necessarily happening.
Yeah, like ominous.
Yeah, it's like an ominous kind of dream, but like my back hurts in a dream, and it's like what is this? But I had a dream where like I went, it's like I still haven't finished the Shadow of the Colossus remaster. I haven't beaten the last Colossus, and I remember that in a dream for some reason. I tried to play it, and every time I tried to boot it up, it was just knack, and then that was it. That was the dream,
and
and it was horrifying.
That is worse than almost any nightmare I've ever had. For any game to imagine, you're like your desert island game, they always say, but you're stuck on a desert island, but all you have is knack.
Yeah, it's almost like if you were on a desert island, you brought the game case and you open it up and it was like a DVD, like a Blu-ray of Talladega Nights.
Oh, I haven't seen that one in a long time.
Didn't they bundle that with the original PS3s?
I think so, yeah. I think that's exactly right. I think they did. That's a great throwback. Knack's funny to me because it got a sequel, so it must have sold appreciably, but but it was also a launch game and there was nothing else to really play except for Killzone, so
yeah.
I often wondered if you can't take Knack became such a meme that you can't take for I don't know if anyone's being serious when they talk about Knack 2 and they're talking about it in a positive way.
I know. It's kind of like the Smash Mouth of modern video games. Oh. It's really difficult.
Oh man, Smash Mouth. All right, there's a few things I want to get into before we get into the news. This is going to be an interesting episode, Chris, because we have just a little bit of news, but we have a lot of reader questions. So I think we're gonna backload with reader questions and I don't know why I keep calling them readers. They're listeners. Or viewers.
It works.
If you're looking at the static image on YouTube that I put up in the video, everyone's mad because if you listen to it on YouTube, it's just the static image, and they want us to record this video, but I just don't have it in me.
It's a lot more work than it looks like. I think like video, like I had the same thing. I started like a bit kind of like an occasional podcast. It was more just like if whenever I had people over, I would like record one.
Is that Snark Tank?
Yeah,
that's a great name.
Yeah, I love it. That's why I did. I was like, I need to do something with his name. So it's just this really. There's only one episode right now, and it's probably gonna be pretty sparse. But yeah, everybody was like, why is it just like a waveform? And I'm like, it's not easy to record a podcast.
It does fill me with a little bit of fury. I won't say like a lot of fury, but a little bit. Like it boils up in me where people like insinuate that I'm lazy. Like there's a lot of things.
No, Colin's not lazy. He works constantly.
There's a lot out. Like people say a lot of things about me, and I can accept that people have their criticisms. But when people insinuate that it's not that hard, or why don't you just do more, or why are you taking the easy way out, or whatever, I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. So we're doing the very best we can. So I bring this up only to say that if you would prefer, I just put it on YouTube as a static image because some people just prefer YouTube or YouTube Red and they just put it on in the background.
Yeah.
So it's a courtesy for you guys. So I know that you guys want video of this, and I wouldn't say we would never do it, but I have no plans of doing that anytime soon. And I do 4 shows a week, so just please, God help.
It's also really convenient because we can look like total shit.
Yeah, I haven't cut my hair in like 2 months. Look at me, like a fucking moron. All right. A few notes, Chris.
Sure. We got stuff wrong, I see.
For us, I'm always getting things wrong. Well, the first thing is we were talking about Red Dead Redemption last week, the first one, and we were wondering about options to play it. And some people told us, and I just wanted to put it out there, that it is available on Xbox One via backwards compatibility with Xbox 360 and also on PlayStation Now. So there are, I guess, current-gen options for you if you want to go down that road. I think the Xbox One way would be way easier than using Now.
Yeah, probably. But it is still ultimately just like kind of like a backwards combat. Like I would like some kind of, quote unquote remaster where it's not really remastered, just kind of up-resed and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe running at 60.
Absolutely. Yeah, I assume we went a little too. Or I went a little too tinfoil hat with it, where I was suggesting that maybe the Mass Effect effect on Andromeda with the trilogy being re-released. We were talking about maybe Red Dead would look bad in comparison to Red Dead 2, but it just seems like they have other solutions. It's a similar thing about how they released the PlayStation 2 classics of the Grand Theft Auto games on PS4 kind of quietly.
Yeah.
So there's options there. So I wanted people to know that we did catch that. I was talking a little bit about why Fallout has this dissonance between the 50s, like the 50s aesthetic, and then the technology in it, but it takes place in the future. Someone wrote in and said that in the Fallout universe, this is all explained because the microprocessor was never invented in that universe. Oh. And that doesn't... I accept that might be part of the lore, but that doesn't make any sense because you can't have a personal computer or a robot without a microprocessor. So you could, I guess, have vacuum tubes in some robots, but those little computers you hack in the game wouldn't be possible without a microprocessor. So that's not satisfactory to me. And I'm sure I'll hear more from you guys about that. And finally, we were talking about licensed movies, licensed TV shows. A lot of people wrote in and suggested the Castlevania anime series on Netflix to us.
I heard that, but it's also worth noting that's like an exception. Like the rule still very much is video game oriented or like video game based TV and movies are pretty.
Yeah, exactly. A broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite saying of all time. And I say it constantly.
It's a good one.
Chris, we played some games this past week. We'll talk about those. Before we do, I just want to thank everyone again for their kind words. I know we did this last week. I won't continue to make this a trend, but we are gathering new listeners that are kind of slowly coming around to that we're doing a PlayStation show. So I want to continue to thank you guys rather for your kindness, your generosity, your support of us, not only on the free feeds, but obviously on Patreon. Lots of people are joining Colin's Last Stand's Patreon to get the show 3 days early. People are asking about the Spotify feeds. Submitted, can't do anything about it. And people are wondering, why isn't the new podcast in the iTunes feed or whatever? Those enter on Friday. Remember, you have to be a patron to get the show on time, quote unquote, for 3 days. So just wanted to clarify those things. Chris, It says here you're playing 3 games, a trilogy of games here. Yeah. Well, actually, you're literally playing a trilogy, but you're playing 2 other games.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you've been playing the last week.
So I've been continuing on with Prey, but I am starting to kind of really not look forward to it. Because I keep wrestling with the controls. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I'm trying to play too many things. But the controls in that game are very particular, and every time I go back to it, I can't snap my mind back in quickly enough that it isn't like a jarring experience. But it's good. I enjoy it. It's just like I just wish the controls were just a little better. I've been going back to the Crash trilogy because I haven't trying to get all the gems because I'm a bit of a weirdo.
Are you playing it on PS4 or Switch?
I actually just got it on Switch for like portable stuff, but I'm playing the PS4 one is the one I'm trying to do all the stuff on.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I like it though. It's fun. And Beat Saber, which is actually coming to PSVR. I don't know when, but I'm playing it on Vive right now, and it's so good.
Very cool.
I'm so excited for that to come to PSVR because I want to have like a living room version of that because it's so good.
It looks awesome. Yeah, it looks cool. And it's so funny you say that because Aaron and I were talking. I don't have my PSVR out because it's such a mess of wires. And it's a cool thing. It would be an awesome thing to have as like a centerpiece of a living room, like a conversation piece, but it's just not elegant enough. I think it will be when, whatever iteration they release with the next console, which I think there's going to be a new VR headset. Yeah. But they got to get rid of that processor box, and there's too many, maybe have one or maybe one cord that so it kind of Vacation Simulator is actually the game that I'm really looking forward to, that I want to plug my, because I love Job Simulator. I think that game's so funny and like so exactly what I want out of VR, something whimsical and stuff. So that would be Beat Saber's another great game that would probably convince me to put. They're releasing PSVR games every week still. So
but I would recommend that like wholeheartedly.
Let me ask you about Crash Insane Trilogy before we move on. How are you fine? Like, are you fine? I bought it, or actually I got a code for it for last year and played the first one. I haven't played the Crash game since I was in high school, and I'm not a huge fan, and I don't think that they are exceptionally great games. But how do you feel? Because you obviously love them, but how do you feel that they hold up? Do you feel like this reimagining of it is faithful?
I think so. I think it's definitely a faithful game. It's definitely a game of its age. It's not amazing by today's standards. It was, and you're just gonna have to kind of accept that when you're looking at a faithful remaster. I'm expecting very similar feelings about the Spyro trilogy when that comes out, which I'm pretty excited for. But it's just, I don't know. I think I associate those games with like a really like just kind of like a nice time where like nothing was too crazy.
Sure.
It's just like the music's nice and it just feels good to play.
And it's hard. I mean,
it's hard. The first one's insanely hard.
Yeah, the first one's very hard. I remember them saying when I interviewed like 18 people for the history of Naughty Dog when I was at IGN, and I was interviewing guys that worked on the first game, and they were talking about like how insane, like they made a huge mistake making it that hard. And
no, I like that about it.
I do too. I think that part of it's like a depth perception thing with some of the parts of the game, like when you're on that bridge and you're trying to jump forward and stuff. The
bridge is the level.
Yeah. So I tried to go into it with an open mind. It's still sitting on my cross media bar or whatever you would call it on PlayStation 4, but I just haven't gotten back to it because it hasn't drawn me in.
That's fair.
I'd never had a love for it. I never had an affinity for it. It was always one of those. It's one of those games similar to maybe Demon Souls and Dark Souls where I'm like, I wish I understood this because I feel like you're missing something when you don't understand it.
I'll say Crash is a game that I like despite its flaws. I just kind of like, it makes me happy to look at it and like play it and like hear the sound design and all that. I will say there are very few games that are like of that era that I think would hold up. I think I'm going to go on a tangent on this again. I think Crash Team Racing would absolutely hold up. 100%. That game controls like a dream. And I bet it still would.
You're hitting that. You're beating that drum, and I respect that.
I want people to hear this.
It is surprising that they. I mean, I guess it's not surprising. It's an investment, and they would have had to have the team do it. But it would have been a cool kind of pre-order bonus or something, or just a game that you sold separately.
Yeah.
with the trilogy itself.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they looked into it, and maybe there's bigger issues at play. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
For me, I've been playing 3 games. I've still been playing Fallout 4, still very slowly working through it, but there's some gravity to it where I keep coming back.
Yeah.
I think I'm eventually going to get knocked off of it because other games are coming out. I'm most imminently waiting for Mega Man X Legacy Collection, which I should get codes for any moment now, and the trophies are live, so it's coming. It's good, and I'm excited about that. But Fallout 4 has been keeping me busy. 20XX I've been playing. I played that for the first time on PC like 3 years ago, and I don't know if it was in beta or whatever. I don't know if you've seen this game.
I've never heard of it.
It's pretty cool. It's a procedurally generated side scroller, and it's heavily inspired by Mega Man, specifically Mega Man X, hence the name. But you're basically trying to go through like a series of procedurally generated stages that throw bosses at you in different orders and stuff, and try to do it quickly and try to survive like one hit, like one death, and then you're over, and then you go back to the beginning. So similar in a lot of ways to other roguelikes and stuff, but it's got that Mega Man hook. It feels really good, but I find it's surprisingly not, it's not what I look for in a Mega Man game. I'm not looking for like to beat a high score or to beat a time. I like playing them fast and fluidly, but it's not quite it. So it scratches that gameplay itch for me, but it doesn't scratch like the reason that I play Mega Man. So I'm not like as drawn into it as I thought I would be. But I know a lot of people were recommending it to me, and I wanted to give that a shout out. And finally, and I went to my phone here because I wanted to get the guy's name. A guy named Barry M. Johnson is a Patreon supporter of Colin's Last Stand and sent me randomly on like Friday, I think, a code for a game he made. The game is called Perils of Baking, and which is an amazing name. When I saw the name, I was like, "What the hell is this?" He's one guy that made it's a pretty crude 2D side scroller, kind of in the vein, as he would say, in like Super Mario World, but certainly not Super Mario World. But it's like 30 or 40 stages, and I don't even know what the hell's going on in the game. You're basically like a baker of some sort, and you like collect like sweets and all this stuff in the stages as you're just going through and getting to the next stage and so on and so forth.
So it's like an NES fever dream.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's very true to that aesthetic, very true to that gameplay. It feels good. It doesn't look very good. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily recommending it. I actually think it's a little expensive for what it is, but I wanted to give a shout out to Barry for sending the game. I thought it was pretty cool. I ended up platinuming it. It wasn't like I didn't go out of my way to do it. I just played it one night and got the platinum trophy. And I want to thank him. I thanked him privately, but wanted to thank him for sending that code. And to remind anyone, because people have been reaching out to me privately, developers big and small, congratulating us for the show. And so I wanted to throw out there that if anyone wants us to play something, check something out, you can always contact us on Twitter or on Patreon. Patreon would probably be the best. You don't have to be a patron to contact me there. Send us some codes and we'll check out your game. I can't guarantee we'll talk about it. I can't guarantee we're going to like it. But we would love to be exposed to more of these smaller games on PSN. So if you're listening to this and you're one of those people, then feel free to send us a code just like Barry did with Perils of Baking.
I think I saw that in my email. But it was like my email's been swamped. Insane. I feel like I gotta like change email addresses.
I'm
still on the one that I've had for like 10 years.
Yeah, that's rough because if you're not, again, we were talking beforehand, I'm very OCD. So whenever I get a random piece of spam, I make sure to go in and unsubscribe from it and like block it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you do that? Because otherwise you find yourself, it's like collapsing on top of you.
I guess I don't. I guess I just haven't.
You got to be vigilant.
Yeah, I got to get around to it.
In the digital space, you have to be vigilant. Remember, I gave you on the first episode, I gave you the maximum amount of freedom to do whatever you want. So make sure you do. Make sure you get rid of the spam if you want to exercise the freedom in that way. Now there are more pieces of news than I thought, but none of this is exceptionally important.
No.
But I feel like we should talk about it just to catch everyone up on what's going on in the world of PlayStation.
I didn't know about this first one at all.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, and if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend everyone go out and see it. It says actor Nathan Fillion, perhaps best known in nerd circles for his role on Firefly and Serenity, as well as their long-running show Castle, which I've never seen, released what is in essence a high-end 15-minute Uncharted fan film with Fillion taking on the role of Nathan Drake. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. I watched like the first 3 minutes of it, and then I just scrubbed through the rest of it. I was like, it's very well done and very interesting. I don't know to what end this was done, or if Sony, who's notorious about going after people for shit, is going to let this stand because he's famous. But there's a big thing in the beginning, like it's unaffiliated with Naughty Dog, unaffiliated with Sony. If this was someone else, Sony would squash this in 2 seconds. So I'll be interested to see what they make of this. But it's very high budget, or it looks very high budget, and it's very, very interesting.
That sounds cool. I love Nathan Fillion.
It's just an interesting thing in stark contrast to what we were talking about last week about.
Yeah.
And to what we were saying earlier about Castlevania. the show on Netflix. This looks like a real, but
that's what I think. Like short form, like fan films and stuff like that actually do work pretty often. Like for that kind of for video games, it's just when you try to like take it to like a long running show or like a feature film, when it kind of, what is this?
Yeah, it's maybe Uncharted is one of the few properties where it would make some sense if you told like a different story, like they're all different and wrapped up, encapsulated stories. So maybe you can do it. And maybe I wasn't really sold on the resemblance to Drake. I think that's important. But the clothing was right. The bad guys were right. The setting's right. They're in this beautiful villa, beautiful shot, like aerial drone shots and all these. I was impressed. I mean, it cost money to do this. I don't know why. But
that's cool, man. I gotta check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Everyone out there, go ahead and check that out if it hasn't been taken down already. Number 2 is Shuhei Yoshida, Sony's president of Worldwide Studios, gave a talk at Developer Brighton in the UK, where he made note of Sony's lack of success when it comes to multiplayer exclusives. Yoshida was pitched a question about the dissonance between Sony's first-party move towards amazing single-player experiences, while the industry as a whole migrates towards multiplayer and games-as-a-service type titles. He said, quote, "Making games of any type nowadays is difficult, but this is the area in which our studios have a chance to push this art forward, not to follow successes in the market, but to follow their hearts. It just so happens that we are fortunate to have these teams to push forward with these types of games," end quote. And it's worth noting that that's a little bit of a fragment, so that's not a consecutive quote. I just don't want to say it, quote, end quote, quote, end quote, quote, end quote 5,000 times, even though I just did. What do you make of this? Do you think that there's, and I think we've touched on this, and you and I have certainly talked about it privately, but there does seem to be a massive gap for a big multiplayer PlayStation AAA exclusive. Do you think that Sony would be wise to go down that path with one of its developers, or do you think that they kind of have a good thing going here? I mean, they do have a good thing going with their studios right now without going.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they do have a good thing going, and I think the fact that they don't focus on that, I think, is what kind of sets them apart and what almost makes them unique in a way. Because I think Microsoft actually has the opposite problem, where they focus really, really heavily on multiplayer, almost to like a fault. And like I'm pretty sure a lot of the exclusives for the Xbox and the Windows Store are solely based on. You don't go there looking for like a quality single player experience. You go there, it's like State of Decay. It's like, oh, it's buggy. Hey, you can play it with your friends. Hey, Crackdown 3's multiplayer. Halo's obviously like a multiplayer staple, and that kind of, after a while, that kind of blends in with everything. So I think the fact that you can push out, again, like God of War or Last of Us, and I mean Last of Us has multiplayer, but
right,
let's be real, it's a single player game.
Sure, of course.
I don't know. I think that's to their benefit.
Yeah, I do too. I think it is a great differentiator. I don't think it would hurt them to get, if not do a AAA exclusive first party game, they can have a relationship like Insomniac's making Spider-Man, which is not a first party studio, but that's a first party game. They could have a relationship like that. They're just gonna have to pay. But I do agree with you that the idea of cannibalizing what they have with multiplayer games that take a lot of attention and maybe not as much money necessarily would probably be a mistake. And they also don't really have the studio set up right now to accommodate that kind of game. Like the studios that they used to own that could do this kind of game best don't exist anymore. And you can go all the way back to like Incognito, which did Warhawk and Twisted Metal and all that kind of shit. Yeah. They would obviously be more, forged in that multiplayer fire. Zipper doesn't exist anymore. The guys that did SOCOM and MAG and Unit 13, they would probably be able to do that. Gorilla Cambridge, which did, most recently did Riggs and did Killzone on Vita and stuff like that, they would maybe be able to do that, but they don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
it's like it's over and over. Evolution doesn't exist anymore. They used to do multiplayer racing games. So.
It's tricky. It's a weird. I think if they were ever going to go down that road, they would be wise to pay as much attention to that game as possible. Because if you're going to put out a multiplayer game on the PS4 exclusively, I think it would also have to have that draw that the PS4 is known for, which is like polish, like insane levels of polish. I don't think you could get away with like a PUBG tier multiplayer PS4 exclusive on. I just don't. I don't see that selling.
Right.
Because people go to PlayStation for that polished kind of experience, and if you can't replicate that in a multiplayer game, at least in some form, be it animations or just graphical fidelity or anything, then I would maybe not jump.
I'd also argue that there's no, Well, I'd argue two things at the same time. One, because of the robust third-party offerings on PlayStation 4, there's no need to compete with them, with the Destinies and the Divisions and the Sieges. That should already exist. There's no reason for Sony to get involved.
And they have and especially with and Destiny and other games have. I'm pretty sure they have some exclusivity with PS4, right?
Yeah.
Like map packs
Destiny
and stuff
specifically
like
does get things first.
Yeah,
and I think some pure exclusives like weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I would also make the other argument, not to say that the audience for consoles don't ebb and flow, but they do remain pretty consistent in what they're looking for. I think you can kind of identify what a Nintendo fan looks for instance, or an Xbox fan. And I think PlayStation did try for several years on PS3 to exist in this world. Now, they were a little premature to it, and I think that they were cannibalizing a lot of their own games. But when you think about, the Twisted Metal game that came out on PS3, when you think about MAG, when you think about even games like PlayStation All-Stars and all these kinds of things that they tried, Mod Nation Racers, there's like a lot of things they tried that no one cared about. And then so to say, like, where are the kart racers, like we were talking about last week, or where are the multiplayer games? It's like, well, they did have a robust offering of these games. I'm not saying that they were the best, but that was during a time when they were trying to throw everything at the wall and almost nothing but their single-player games stuck. And now here you are.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it. I think the only studios that they have that could really do multiplayer properly, like in a big way, would be Guerrilla, but they're not going to do that. They're obviously doing Horizon and Polyphony with Gran Turismo, but I think that they would be wiser to make Gran Turismo into a platform.
Yeah.
Like a game is, why release these new...
Yeah,
Forza does it with multiple studios, but I think that the bottom's going to fall out there. And if you just make a robust, like a PS5 Gran Turismo game that's free, and then you go in and you can just buy whatever you want, little bits at a time for 10 years, that'd be pretty cool, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I think risk.
Especially with that kind of game, I think, when there's not like a heavy focus on story or any kind of,
right.
There's no lore to Gran Turismo.
Yeah,
you can't really build off of it. So you might as well build off of it as like a service.
No Gran Turismo lore, indeed. There probably is. We're probably going to get someone's going to message us the fan fiction for how this Honda Civic fucked this Nissan Altima. Number 3. As of the recording of this podcast, Sony's corporate stock is at the highest point it has been in more than a decade, with a total market value of some $65 billion, making it the most valuable Japanese electronics maker for the first time since 2003. Sony's success is attributed to entertainment like movies and TV, music, and yes, indeed, video games. The leadership of Kaz Hirai and more recently Kenichiro Yoshida is highly credited for the turnaround, with stock up around 15% this year alone. So pretty interesting. I don't own Sony stock, so I don't really give a shit, but this is an interesting story about the financial and long-term health of Sony, because people might forget, and I'm sure you remember, Sony was in bad shape.
Yeah, it was like recent, not too long ago, really.
No, It was like during the PS3 era, especially during the recession, compounded with the PS3 era and the PS3 not doing well, and I think also compounded somewhat with Sony's heavily involved in financial services and like banking, weird financial shit in Japan that I think that they took a hit on. And since they're a Japanese company, they're always having to convert in and out of yen, which really hurts them a lot too. So when the yen's really strong, it's really great for them, and when it's really weak, it's not. So there's a lot of mitigating factors here, and it's not a super important story, but it does show that Sony's rebounding as an entity, which is great.
Yeah.
Number 4. Similar to Joel's and Ellie's relationship in the original The Last of Us Part 2's older Ellie will in turn have a constant, or at least near constant, AI-controlled companion. Neil Druckmann confirmed the news to BuzzFeed. He said, quote, "Well, Ellie used to be an NPC, but she's the protagonist in this story, so the player is controlling Ellie. It's safe to say with the game that we made in the past that there will be some NPC with you in the story, even though we're not showing the NPC in this demo," end quote. What do you make of that? I'm a little disappointed to hear that.
You think so?
Yeah,
really?
Personally. I think it opens up the idea of maybe more seamless co-op gameplay in the game, but I think things are scarier when you're alone.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. But at the same time, it's like a big draw for The Last of Us was that kind of NPC relationship. I feel like the story did a lot of the lifting in that game, and that's a lot of the story came from the person that was with you the whole time.
Sure. But could the argument be made, I don't know if this resonates with you, but that we only cared because Ellie was a little girl and she was helpless. Now that Ellie's an adult, like, if the person she's with is not equally as helpless, and like, it was cool seeing her stick a knife into someone or like jump on someone because it was like so wild, but I guess what I'm saying is like I need someone that's in a state of vulnerability with me for me to recapture that feeling. Otherwise, it's just a dude that's distracting me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think personally, I would have. I don't know. I do think it would have been probably wise to maybe evolve a little bit and have the player by themselves, but I feel like again, I feel like a lot of story happened while you were doing nothing in that game. You know, like how when anytime you'd be walking in between set pieces or events, a lot of story would happen while you were just walking because of the interactions between the NPCs.
That's a great point.
So I feel like it's just kind of like in their script formula, really.
Yeah. Actually, you might have convinced me that I'm maybe jumping the gun there. That's not a bad point. I want The Last of Us 2 to be, or The Last of Us Part 2 to be great. Yeah. And I think it's going to be nothing short of staggering. I have no doubt about that. But I wonder, I don't know if you agree, but it seems like people are just a little harder on this one. Like just in what I'm reading about it, what I'm seeing about it, the kind of people feel like it's a little one note and a little dark. And I'm like, but that seems to be the theme of the game.
I don't really know. I think because the first Last of Us didn't have an expectation, really. Like you saw it and you were like, oh, that looks cool. But it wasn't like a sequel. So you didn't have anything to live up to, really. You had Uncharted, I guess, to live up to, but is very obviously a very different take, a very different game. So I feel like now when you have I think anytime you have a sequel to like something that was like earth-shattering, people are going to be a little bit more, scrutinizing. I know I was before I saw the E3 trailer.
Right.
I was like, this is good, whatever.
Yeah, it's certainly, I give Neil, a lot of credit because it's a tough act to follow. I know that they weren't necessarily going to do a sequel, and even though the game sold really well, that there's no necessity for it. Yeah. So I like that they were like, we'll do it. We Drake's Fortune is not considered the great Uncharted game. Among Thieves is. How about some sales?
Yeah.
Sony has revealed the best-selling digital games from the PlayStation Network for the month of June 2018. The top 10 best-selling PS4 games from the PlayStation Store were in order. Grand Theft Auto 5, which is
insane to me. That's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That's insane. How long ago? 2013.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
Almost 5 years ago now. Yeah, I think it was mid-September. I was in Japan when it came out, and I think it was mid-September because I was at TGS.
Oh, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's a little annoying actually, but Grand Theft Auto 5, FIFA 18, God of War, The Last of Us Remastered, Detroit Become Human, Mortal Kombat XL, Jurassic World Evolution, which I heard was terrible, Horizon Zero Dawn Complete
Really?
Edition.
I heard it was good.
Really? I heard it was. It's getting bad reviews.
Oh no!
Did you hear it was? Who told you it was good? Maybe
I've heard like a lot of friends of mine saying they're having a lot of fun. I guess having a lot of fun and good are two different things.
They are. It reminds me a little bit of what was that Metal Gear Survive game that came out some months ago that like no one talks about anymore. Yeah. But some people like really liked it. So it's hard to. I'm actually interested in playing it, but I'm not going to pay more. I won't pay a penny more than $4.99 for Metal Gear Survive.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Let me look up though while we're here. I want to just see
the reviews for.
Yeah, I'm on my phone and I'm just looking up the Metacritic. Oh, and I mean it has a 71. I guess it's not as bad as I thought. So no, I'm wrong. So that's on PC, but it's 7.1. What else is on this list? Oh, rounding out the list is Minecraft and Gran Turismo Sport. So people are still buying Minecraft, of course, which is a Microsoft. I love that Microsoft is selling games on.
That is insane. It's
very weird. I know that Minecraft is huge, and I think it would be cutting off your nose to spite your face. But wouldn't you want to make that an Xbox exclusive? Like, if you were like, wouldn't you just be like, why wouldn't we lock this up?
No, I don't think so. No, because then you would have to like take it off of platforms that already have it,
True.
Which would be a nightmare.
Yeah, that would suck. Or you could just not update them anymore.
It's still, I think that'd be like a firestorm of bad PR.
You're making a lot of great points today, though, that are convincing me that I'm wrong about everything I feel.
Your feelings are invalid.
As far as the top 5 PSVR downloads, Job Simulator, Superhot VR, Drive Club VR, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality, and Doom VFR were the top 5 downloads. As far as free-to-play games on PS4, H1Z1, Fortnite, Fallout Shelter, Brawlhalla, and Paladins were the top 5. And then on Vita, Stardew Valley, God of War Collection, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, and Odin Sphere Life Riser, I think I'm saying that right, were the top 5 PS Vita downloads. And as far as PlayStation Classics are concerned, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Destroy All Humans 2, Psychonauts, Destroy All Humans 1, and Bully were the top 5 sellers.
Man, I love Destroy All Humans. Just makes me happy. I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, those games, people are churning through those PS2 classics, especially because they're trophy enabled on PS4. So that's actually getting people to go back and play them, which is cool. I wish they would do the same thing for PS1. I want Castlevania Symphony of the Night with trophies like you wouldn't.
Oh
believe.
my god, so that is such a good game.
Oh, I threw out this note too quickly. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Next piece of news: Bethesda Game Studios director Todd Howard had some powerful advice for anyone wondering why Bethesda keeps re-releasing Skyrim. Lots of folks are playing it. In a conversation with Jeff Keighley at Barcelona, Spain's Game Lab, Howard said, quote, "Even now, the amount of people who play Skyrim 7 years later, millions of people every month are playing that game. That's why we keep releasing it. If you want us to stop releasing it, stop buying it." End quote. I mean,
it's valid.
Couldn't put it any more perfectly than that.
I can't fault him for that, honestly.
But it does bring up, Chris, for me, what we were talking about with Fallout 3 in New Vegas, particularly Fallout 3 because they made it. They could give that game the same treatment. Skyrim's on the same engine running on the same console. So they do give Skyrim like a special amount of love that they don't give the other game they made on the platform. And I found that weird.
I think because like Fallout 3 was, I think it was big in the culture, like in the video game sphere. I think, but like people, I feel like Skyrim in 2011 was like Fortnite today. Like you would just hear about it, like walking to like a convenience store, or like just like on a train or something. You know, it was just like ubiquitous, that game, and I think that's part of the reason. You know, I'm sure Fallout 3 is like insanely popular and a lot of people are playing it, but I have no doubt that Skyrim is like dwarfed that, especially because of like the modding capabilities on PC and all that. The game was like infinitely moddable.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, people are doing wild shit in it too. I do like his candor though, of just being like, just stop buying. Like
he's literally telling you to stop buying his game.
Yeah, like just don't. I'm sure they're sick of, you know, they want to move on to what's next too. Yeah. Although external studios are obviously porting it to all these things like Switch. But yeah, I loved that quote. It was very candid. I like Todd Howard because he's one of the only people that says anything. Yeah,
I always feel weird because I'm like, I like that guy. But everybody's like, why do you like Todd Howard? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
It just seems likable.
People have a problem with Todd Howard?
People have a problem with everybody.
That's true. That's true. Today I tweeted out, because we're recording this on Amazon Prime Day, and I made the mistake of clicking on the Prime Day hashtag, and it's just incredible meltdowns.
What's going on? What do you mean? What's going on?
People, it's just like, well, there's a group of people that hate Amazon, and then there's a group of people that hate Amazon because they don't treat their employees well, and then there's a group of people that hate Amazon because the site's down, and then there are a group of people that hate Amazon because they're not selling cool stuff on Prime Day, and it's just like the outrage over everybody and everything. It's actually, I said on Twitter, I'm a pretty dour person, and I can't even feign that level of outrage about this much shit. Like, it's not possible. It's impossible.
It's just like an everlasting chasm of pessimism.
It's like I gravitate towards pessimism, and I understand that natively. Yeah. I really do.
I get it.
But there are people on Twitter and on social media that are just so miserable. I read some of these people's feeds that I don't even follow once in a while. I just see them, and it's just so many. And I'm not even talking about just video games. There's so many complaints.
Yeah, no. I have a lot of people that I know in real life that I love in real life, but I just can't. I can't deal with the tweets. I just can't. It's like a separate. It's like they took like a part of their personality that like is upset with everything and just like gave it a life on this platform.
It's bizarre, right? I used to be so much worse on Twitter like 5 years ago.
I made a pact with myself. It's just like I'm just gonna like try and keep it light.
Yeah, you don't. I like that you don't tweet very often, which is great, because then when you say something, first of all I see it because it rises on the algorithm, but also it's like it's more powerful that way. You know?
Yeah, I think so too.
And then your girlfriend Lacey actually tweeted out something interesting the other day too, where she was like kind of quoting people asking her like, "Are you dead?" And people just assume that because she's not on Twitter. Yeah. It's like is this your like vital sign now for the world? If you don't tweet out for 2 weeks, you're dead.
Anxiety. I do have that anxiety. I'm like, oh man, I haven't posted today. Because you have this thing. It's like, am I still alive in these people's consciousness?
It's like the Matrix.
Ugh.
This is a brief piece of news, but one I'm very excited about, and this just confirms what we already knew. But Ubisoft has confirmed what we already knew: the Division 2, like the original Division, can be played entirely alone from beginning to end, and everything in between. Hallelujah!
That's good.
Can't wait. Really excited about that. This next story is a weird one. Did you see anything about this? This is a weird ass story. All right, let's tell the audience before we dissect.
Yeah.
When Aliens Colonial Marines was released in 2013, it was widely panned as being a mediocre at best game, though many people thought it was outright bad. The reason for that, at least in part, was because of the game's weak enemy AI, which apparently might have something to do with a single spelling error in the game's code that had gone unnoticed until a few days ago. We're talking about 5 years this has been out.
It's insane.
A modder parsing through the game's PC code noticed a .ini file that misspelled the word tether, throwing in an unneeded A. When the error was fixed, the game's AI started behaving differently, more logically and aggressively. While this doesn't make the game good or even decent, it does improve the AI, at least marginally, according to tests conducted by Kotaku, and others have confirmed this. How such an error slipped through for so long and went unupdated is anyone's guess, though you'll obviously not be able to mess with the INI file on the console game. That'll be up to Gearbox Software and its development partners to fix, if they ever will. The PC iteration of the game has gone unupdated in any official capacity in 5 years to the month. The last patch was launched on July of 2013. What do you make of this? This is unbelievable because
it's impressive.
It's
like
Gearbox has this reputation beginning with this game of not being very good.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how, because it's not about the spelling error. It's that no one that worked on the game looked at it and was like, the AI is not acting properly. There has to be a problem because the AI, and then no one ran some sort of test on the code and like nothing popped up. And it took a modder 5 years later to be like, this is misspelled in the code and this is why the AI doesn't act right. That's fucking weird.
It's insane, honestly. It blows my. I have a. I don't know. I have a weird relationship with Gearbox because of that game. Because that game looked so cool in the marketing material and the stuff that they showed. I was just so sad when that game goes. It was just so depressing.
I will say that I was at New York Comic Con, I want to say in 2012, and they were showing it for the first time at like some off-site thing that I went to, and I didn't write anything about it because I just didn't care. But the game they showed, they had the actors in and everything, and like it was cool. They had a little round table, and the game looked great.
Yeah.
And I like Alien. I'm not like a huge fan.
No, I'm not a huge fan either. I just thought the game looked really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that Gearbox didn't make this alone and that they kind of sourced it out and Sega was involved in this. And a lot of the rumors are that, who knows if it's substantiated or not, that they kind of like took the money from Sega and then kind of like used some of it maybe for Battleborn while they shipped this off to what was that studio's name? I can't even remember it. I'll remember it as we
It's so long ago at this point.
But it really is an impressive and I would even dare say depressing thing that it's not that there was a mistake in the code. It's that no one looked at the game and said like there's something wrong with the game. I
think there was a lot wrong with the game and they were like, we just got to get this out. Honestly, is what it reads to me like. If you miss something that odd, a spelling error, in a code directly relating to AI, when the AI is like one of the main things wrong with it, it just says to me that they weren't looking that closely at the AI because they were just focused on getting the thing out the door in time.
It's just weird.
It is.
And Sega's as much to blame, I think, about that as Gearbox because it's just, I don't know, it's just a little weird to me. And I'm just going through some of this text here to make sure, because I could have sworn that there was like another studio on this, but I'm not seeing. Oh, Timegate. Yeah. I don't know. So who knows? There was so much drama around that. Yeah. And I kind of felt bad for Randy Pitchford, but the ironic thing is Gearbox hasn't done anything like worthwhile since Borderlands 2. And it's been a long time.
Well, they say they're working on Borderlands 3 now.
Which they should have been working on immediately.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm totally dry on that, by the way. I don't think I care.
Yeah, I don't either. I go back once in a while and play Borderlands 2 because I never beat it. And it's a great game. Yeah. Like there's something about it. It was even great on Vita. It wasn't like the enemies disappeared when you killed them because the RAM couldn't take it and there was no like blood effects and stuff, but it was, and I think they even scaled down the enemy numbers and stuff, but it was like, I know people that worked on it and it's actually a really impressive thing that they got it running on Vita at all.
Yeah. No, it's a good game, honestly.
Yeah.
But like it's been so long at this point.
I agree. It's just, you want them to do well.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I'm like, that's fucking nuts. That's like the cherry on top of that whole story.
Yeah.
Like it took years because people were so outraged in 2013 about it. Then it kind of got silent. And that is just the shit cherry on top of the shit cake.
I'm surprised that it took 5 years for a person to find it when the game's not even at all relevant now. You'd think that somebody like a modder would have found it back then.
Right.
Almost, right?
Yeah. That's a great point.
It's crazy.
Some nerd out there is still playing Alien Colonial Marines. Cool. All right. There's just a few small items to wrap up here before we get into the games that are coming out.
Let's get going.
Sleek and slick-looking side-scrolling action game Dead Cells is coming to PlayStation 4 on August 7th. I want to tell the audience, and I want to tell you too, Chris, this game looks fucking great.
Really?
You guys got to go check this game out. Yeah, it's called Dead Cells. Not to be confused with the Papa Roach song Dead Cell from the first record. Immersive underwater survival game Subnautica is coming to PlayStation 4 this holiday season, and we'll have a limited edition physical version, should you want to get in on that. Far Cry 5's already announced Lost on Mars DLC pack now has a release date and price. You can look for that soon on PS4 for $9.99. I think it's actually this week. And it's also part of the game's season pass.
Ooh.
Darksiders 3 developer Gunfire Games, which we were just talking about last week, has another game in development. It's called Remnant from the Ashes, and it's a third-person survival action shooter due out in 2019. That's just a lot of words. And vampire-soaked action RPG Code Vein has been delayed out of its September release date and won't launch until 2019. That's a Bandai Namco game. That looks pretty cool.
All right.
Before we go, I did have 2 other items that I wanted to recommend people to just read. There's a Eurogamer article about Dead Space 4. In there, they basically they interview people that worked on it about what they wanted to do with the game. And I was going to make that into a news item, but it's so long, you guys should just read it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's about how they wanted to make it kind of like non-linear and a little bit open. Like not open world-ish, but like kind of give you like choices and options and stuff. And then Eurogamer also had... Eurogamer's Mafia 3 article. I'm sorry, I'm misreading my notes. There's also a Mafia 3 article about the original beginning to Mafia 3 that was apparently super violent and had the protagonist killing a cop and all this kind of stuff. And they were so worried about it that they literally wiped it out. Like it does not exist anywhere anymore because they were afraid it was going to leak. And without context, it was going to look like really controversial. So that's pretty cool. You guys can go read about that. All right, Chris, let's get into the games that are coming out this week. I'm always shocked by how many games come to PlayStation Network. You guys out there will play almost none of these. But let's read about them.
I was looking at the list and I was like, really? These are all just things that just came out? That's insane.
Yeah, these are things that are coming out this week. But no, there are definitely... The PlayStation Network's definitely not turning into the App Store. And definitely not. I'm sure the people that are releasing all these games are thrilled that they're going to sell 50 copies.
Hey, it's not as bad as the Switch store.
That's true. Yeah, it's where's the quality control? Why can't we have that? Why is that such a bad thing? Just because a game exists doesn't needs to be on your platform?
No, there's more, Colin. More is better.
It's stupid as hell. It's like it's just a dumb argument.
Yeah, I know.
But these are the games coming out, and by the way, the quotes about the games come from PlayStation Blog. I didn't write them. Here we go.
These are gonna be fun.
Adventure Time: Pirates of the Enchiridion. This is coming to PlayStation 4 digitally. Ahoy! The land of Ooh is underwater, and it's up to Finn and Jake to find out why. Join our heroes as they explore the high seas, search for hidden clues, interrogate shady suspects, and fight pirates to solve the mystery and save their waterlogged world. No. Black Sea Odyssey is coming to PlayStation 4. The hunt is on. Get ready to battle colossal space monsters in Black Sea Odyssey, a savage top-down roguelite shooter. Oh, I'm sorry, shoot-'em-up RPG. Top-down roguelite shoot-'em-up RPG. That's every genre of video game imaginable.
Yeah, what the hell? I can't even like picture that in my head.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's a word soup. Chicken Assassin Reloaded comes to PlayStation 4
That's
digitally.
amazing.
Chicken Assassin is a fast-paced action RPG with an outrageous storyline filled with over-the-top humor that boasts a myriad of colorful enemies and visually stunning levels and environments.
Okay, so...
Frost comes to PlayStation 4 digitally. Frost is the deck-building solo survival card game set on a harsh frozen world ravaged by a lethal storm. That actually sounds pretty cool. I like deck-building games.
Yeah?
Yeah, especially when I don't have to play with other people. Gene Rain comes to PlayStation 4 digital. Death is always fair. He treats both the poor and the rich equally. I don't know about that. This is the concept of the Death Squad, fighting to the end the conflicts afflicting the whole world.
That's just false.
Yeah, that's
just like objectively.
They're lying to you in that. You know, I don't want to be political, but that's not true. Gotcha Racing 2nd comes to PS4. This one comes out on the 19th.
That's an awful name.
Get parts from the Gotcha and customize your own original machine. Win the variety of races and aim to the top of the Grand Prix.
All right. sounds like a jam.
Guts and Glory comes to PlayStation 4 digitally. This is also a 19th release. Welcome to Guts and Glory, the craziest game show on earth where ordinary people compete in extraordinary challenges of life and death for glory. Oh, Jesus God. Hop Along the Badlands comes to PlayStation VR. One-of-a-kind locomotion combines with comedy and fast-paced gameplay to bring you Hop Along the Badlands. Sling lead and thunder across the Badlands as you chase down the infamous Dynamite Gang.
Ooh, the Dynamite Gang.
Oof, I've heard bad things about them. Hungry Shark World comes to PlayStation 4 digitally. Experience life as a shark and eat everything that gets in your way in this action-packed aquatic adventure.
10 out of 10.
They're not even trying. There are so many more games.
Oh my God.
Oh my
this
God.
whole page.
Ice Cream Surfer comes to PlayStation 4 and Vita. The Evil Broccoli, irritated by the fact that kids hate vegetables and love ice creams. That's what it says, ice creams. Has created an army of vegetables to destroy the flavor galaxy. Only the Ice Cream Surfer, with the help of his 4 super tasty friends, can prevent that.
I never noticed, but I feel like a lot of descriptions for these kinds of games are pretty apt to like a lot of NES games.
Yeah,
like Mario could be described just as dumb.
Let's Sing 2018 comes to PS4. Warm up those vocal cords, enter the virtual stage, and experience the best Let's Sing ever made. I'm going to rely on you to report back on that next week, Chris.
Okay, I will. I'm excited for this one.
The Moose Man comes to PlayStation 4 digitally on the 18th. You are the Moose Man, and you have the ability to see all that is hidden to the mortal eye. You are about to visit 3 layers of this universe. The first one is the lower world, where the spirits of the dead reside.
That's not even like a summary of the game. That's like, here's the first part.
That's weird. Mother Gunship comes to PlayStation 4. From the creators of Tower of Guns, Mother Gunship mixes bullet hell intensity with the FPS genre and brings one of the largest gun customization options seen in video games.
What? A first-person bullet hell?
Sounds pretty cool.
Huh.
I don't know how that's going to work, but I think neat. Tower of Guns was a game people liked. Yeah, so
that sounds kind of neat. I haven't heard of that.
We'll check it out.
Yeah.
Mugsters comes to PlayStation 4 digitally. Aliens have taken over the planet and enslaved humanity. Only you have the know-how to drive back the dastardly threat, free your fellow Earthlings, and save the world.
Mugsters?
Yeah. I don't even know what these... The Path of Modus comes to PlayStation 4. Will you let other people stop you from pursuing your dreams? For generations, a village of goblins has been trapped inside a mysterious forest. Anyone who attempts to leave returns hopeless and defeated. Determined to break new ground, a young goblin named Modus plans to build a series of bridges through the forest.
That's so good. Oh my god.
That's like a bunch of non sequiturs.
I love it.
The game with the amazing title Race Arcade comes to PlayStation 4. Race Arcade is the ultimate top-down racing game with a strong retro feeling and super smooth gameplay. This fresh and evolved racing experience seamlessly combines all the best parts from the good old racing games with the most recent technologies.
Recent technologies are the best technologies.
Sonic Mania Plus comes to PlayStation 4 retail. Sonic Mania Plus is the definitive retail enhanced version of the original Sonic Mania digital release, presented in pristine collectible packaging. Building off its momentum and critical acclaim as one of the best platform games of 2017, the nostalgic pixel-perfect visuals and fresh gameplay will deliver a classic experience to gamers.
Did you see the ad? Did you see the ad that they just put out for? It's pretty good.
I go out of my way to avoid anything Sonic related.
That's fair.
Yeah,
and I don't judge you for doing that. It's a good ad. It's like a callback to like some. It's like this dude who's like behind like 2 CRT TVs and like, here's a generic first-person shooter and here's Sonic. It's so ridiculous.
That's cool.
It's good. It's a good ad.
Like I said, I
don't care about Sonic.
I try not to make fun of Sonic publicly because I'm afraid that they're going to make fun of me on there.
On the Twitter account?
Yeah, they're too funny.
Yeah, they got a solid Twitter.
Space Jacked comes to Vita. Build, shoot, survive. Can you, space technician Ace Dave Poprovsky, defend your spaceship against a relentless horde of aliens? All right. Inspired by an arcade classic, Super Destronaut DX. That's a terrible name. I don't know.
I think it's Super Destronaut.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's start again. Super Destronaut DX. I'm sorry. You're right. I can't read. Comes to PS4 and Vita. Inspired by an arcade classic, Super Destronaut DX is retro space shooter that pits you against an enemy more dreaded than a UFO. A scoreboard.
Ooh.
God, there's more. Super Dungeon Tactics coming to PS4 digitally. Super Dungeon Tactics is a classic turn-based game featuring exciting new gameplay mechanics. Along with traditional RPG characters making you feel right at home, the dynamic gameplay will keep you on your toes. Tempest 4000 comes to PS4 retail. Tempest 4000 is a visually stunning, action-packed tube shooter based on the classic hit game Tempest. And finally, Tohu Genso Wanderer Reloaded comes to PS4. Set out on an all-new adventure with Reimu, Marissa, Sine, and more of your favorite Toho characters.
I have a lot of favorite Toho characters,
Colin. I don't know what the fuck that means. All right. And are you going to play any of these? I don't know.
No, probably not. Let me see. That bullet hell seems kind of interesting. I like bullet hells, and I don't think I've ever seen like a... I can't think of a first-person bullet hell. So I might...
Yeah, maybe check that out.
Look at that.
Ice Cream Surfer, I'm going to have to check that out because it's on Vita. And maybe that Super Destronaut DX game.
Moose Man is also pretty enticing.
Yeah, I got to get a code. I refuse to pay for Moose Man, so I got to get a code for that first. All right, Chris, as I promised, let me see. We're like 50 minutes into the show or so. So there's no more news. We've gotten through the ridiculous number of games that are coming out on PlayStation platforms in case you're going to buy any of them out there, and I doubt you are. So I have here 3 full pages of reader questions. And I keep calling them reader questions even though they're listener questions. I'm never going to stop. So should we get into them?
Yeah, let's do it.
Michael Ferrari says, what is Chris Reagan's thoughts on trophies and achievements? What do you think about these? Because he says, Colin, do you still go out of your way to get platinum games? I personally only try to platinum games now if I get close organically since it's such a time sink. I have 69 platinum trophies. I sometimes go out of my way for them, but sometimes I don't. And I really, really enjoy the metagame, and I have since it launched. But what are your thoughts on trophies and achievements, Chris?
I like them, but I feel like it makes it hard to... Because I feel like I like to play on everything, but because I feel like during like 05 to 2013, that whole generation for me was mostly 360. So a lot of the scores that I've accumulated are on that platform, even though I don't necessarily play it all that much anymore. So it's a little frustrating to feel like it's a bit fragmented for me.
Right.
But I like them. I think they're a pretty good addition. I haven't really gone out of my way to platinum or get 100% of trophies in anything aside from if it's a game that I adore or a series that I adore, I'll play through it. And I want to get all of them in Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, that would be a great platinum to get. You know? That's kind of the way I do it too. Back in the day when trophies first came out, I used to play like in the PS3, even pre-Vita era, I used to play a ton of shit for trophies, and it's lame, and I stopped doing it a long time ago, and kind of just there are games, I know you can't delete your trophies, but there are games where I would go through and delete a bunch of shit, like just because I'm like, why do I have this? Why do I have the platinum trophy in Cloudy with a chance of meatballs?
You know what? I have like a traumatic memory regarding achievements. It's because there was a point where I was like really obsessed with it and having like a good score and all that, and I downloaded. You remember Cloning Clyde?
No.
It was this weird kind of... I think it might have been like a 360 arcade thing. But they gave away points. It was like an achievement score. And they gave like 3 points and like 7 points instead of like 5 and 10.
Right. Even number.
And it messed me up. Like I like played it enough to get it back to even, and I deleted the game. I was so frustrated.
I always did wonder that. Like, you see some people with 1 at the end of their at the last integer or whatever.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Do you like the achievement system more, the trophy system more from a cumulative perspective? Do you think that it's cool to have like that high number? Or do you think it's cool to have like different levels of trophies and like a trophy level?
I don't think I really notice the difference, really. It really does come down to preference. I don't really care about either. I just know that I like having all the achievements in a specific game. I'm not gonna get all the achievements or trophies in Super Destronaut.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. But maybe I will.
But like Shadow of the Colossus, maybe.
Sure. I think that, obviously, achievements came out in 2005. Trophies didn't come out until 2008. And clearly, trophies are a copy of achievements, and no one would deny that. But I do think that there was an interesting evolution of it that Sony did wisely, which was the platinum. The idea
that's a cool idea.
The idea of like, this is your reward for getting them all.
I think that, I think they're really good for like proving that you did something, because there was a point in time where you're like, yeah, I beat this game on like the hardest difficulty. Right. And you're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah,
idiot.
You just lie.
You didn't beat Contra. And it's like, no, I swear I did. But now you can actually be like, yo, look, I did it.
No, absolutely. And it's funny you say that too, because you would learn in being in game criticism for a long time, they're just stupid journalists and stupid freelancers out there that think that like they can lie about what they've done, like what they've played. And people would get caught on a pretty regular basis early on, because I remember at GameSpot, there was it was an MMO that a guy played and claimed he played all these hours. And like, we can see how much you played. You didn't play that like as long as you claim. And or people that are like, I beat the game, and I'm like, but your trophies say you didn't beat the game. Like, so to your point, it's not only a thing to prove to people like that I did this thing, but it's a way to get people in positions of power to be like, you didn't actually see the game through well enough. And that was always a motivator for me too, because we do have a question we'll get into later about should you need to beat a game to review it. I don't think you do. I think it depends on the game.
Yeah.
But I would always go as far as possible. I usually beat the games I review, but if I was playing like a really long RPG, I'd get as far as possible to be like, you can literally see how far I've gotten. And then you can take me with a grain of salt or put as much weight into my words as possible. But it gives you kind of a tool set.
I feel like as long as you're aware of the person's engagement in the game, like how far they've gone while you're reading their thoughts, I feel like that's sufficient enough.
I agree.
Like if you're playing Aliens Colonial Marines, like, yo, I gave up halfway through. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's kind of
It's valid.
I did that with there was a game. The lowest score I ever gave at IGN was a PSN game called Amy that came out in like 2000.
I remember that
2011 or something like that. It was terrible, by a French studio named Lexus Numeric, and I gave it a 2. Horrendous game. I don't think I ever gave a game even a 3. I think the lowest score I gave after that was a 4. So this game was, and the review, I'm like, I literally refuse to play this anymore. That was like literally the entire crux of the review. I'm like, I'm not playing it anymore. Like I played halfway through it, I'm done. It's,
my God.
So at sometimes, I guess the point I'm trying to make is sometimes not playing it all the way through is the point.
Yeah, exactly.
That you're trying to make. Pedro Escobar asks us, Do you guys think Sony first-party games have hit a level in the gaming world where the culture will automatically associate their games with top-notch quality? I feel that after Horizon, Detroit, and God of War, along with Spider-Man coming up, we are getting to a point where Sony will have the same kind of clout Nintendo tends to wield. What do you think of that?
I feel like they've had that. I don't think that's new. I felt that way for a while.
Yeah, I think there's... To talk about this candidly, I have to first candidly talk about how I feel like Nintendo is treated. And I talk about this a little bit in my video today. Actually, my episode of SideQuest on my YouTube channel today, it plays into this show because it's about PlayStation Vita and why it failed and why Switch does well in its wake. And I talk about it. I'm like, Switch is a great kit. It's awesome, and it's got great games. But Nintendo is treated so much better by mainstream games media and press and given so many free passes and so many accolades for random ass shit.
Oh no, absolutely.
That it's hard to objectively gauge where they actually are with the quality of their games compared to PlayStation. Because I'm just being honest with you, and I know people think I'm crazy, but when I played Horizon and then the next game I played was Zelda, I was like, Horizon's way better than Zelda. And I don't understand how people are saying like, this is the greatest game of all time, but this other game that's in the same exact genre that's in many ways more impressive isn't as good. And I'm like, I don't really understand that. And so with Nintendo being treated like that, it's hard to say that Sony, to your point, isn't already at that level. It's just that they're treated with a totally different set of expectations.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I felt it's interesting. I felt the exact opposite because I played Zelda first and I really enjoyed it, and then I played Horizon and I didn't really get that.
That's shocking to me. Well, it's not shocking because why am I shocked by that? It has a 97 on Metacritic, and I'm one of the only people that ever says that I didn't like it that much. So I guess it's not that shocking.
Well, I didn't think it was I didn't think it was the best game in the world. That's insane. But I thought I don't know. I think I just feel like Horizon was very, very. I think that was when I started to kind of notice the template for like third person over the shoulder. This is when I started to notice it, like with Uncharted and like Last of Us. It was very like, okay, there's a formula here that I didn't necessarily see in Zelda because Zelda was so odd. It did get boring for me though. I did absolutely like stop playing Zelda after a while.
There was just no purpose in Zelda.
That's true.
That's the way I felt.
The fun of Zelda is definitely like in the physics, I think. But
sure.
But Nintendo is typically treated really, really well just because they've been around for ages. I think that applies to pretty much all the big three. I think the people who have been here the least amount of time, Microsoft gets an unnecessary amount of like crap thrown at them, and I think Nintendo gets like an unnecessary amount of praise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm not going to sit here and shit on Nintendo's quality of their games. I think they are amongst the very best publisher of games.
Oh yeah,
and if not, maybe pound.
I really loved Odyssey, Mario. I had so much fun with that game.
I think it's so funny, man, because I just feel like I'm on a different level than a lot of people. Just this totally different plane where Odyssey and Zelda are really the only two Switch games I've spent any amount of time with, like any significant amount of time with. But I played them both, and I'm like, these are fun. Like I like these, and I can see why people are into them, and I think it's quality. But I also feel like I'm playing something that's like, you know, with Odyssey, I was playing something where I'm like, I don't think this is even remotely the best 3D Mario game. And with Zelda, I was like, it's cool. It's so, when you get over the astonishment of playing that kind of game that Nintendo made, it's just very weird that Nintendo made that game.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, once I got over that shock, I'm like, I don't feel like you guys quite understand what an open world RPG is. That was like what my takeaway was. And I understand I'm totally in the minority, but again, it's hard for me to accurately gauge who's being treated fairly and who isn't, and then how those things contrast with each other.
Because public opinion also kind of influences you.
Exactly.
So it is kind of tricky.
But you know, to answer Pedro's question more succinctly, I think Chris is right. I think that Sony kind of does have that clout. I just think you have to. It's based on who you're asking, and also it's the complicated nature of how Sony makes games and publishes them. You know, you're talking. He brings up I think 4 games here, which is Horizon, Detroit, God of War, and Spider-Man. Well, 2 of those games are not even made by Sony Studios. So now you're getting into this whole thing of like Sony publishing. Do they have the same clout as Sony's internally developed games? And I think there's a whole nother discussion to be had there.
Yeah.
Right. I think Spider-Man is clearly going to be great. And I think Detroit was great too, but are they going to be Last of Us, God of War great? I don't know. And I don't think it really matters. So the end user has no idea Insomniac is not a PlayStation studio. They have no idea. They just know that it's exclusive to the platform.
Yeah.
Jeremy says, reasons that Sony might be avoiding crossplay. What are the benefits of this? Can you think of any?
No, I just think maybe, honestly, the only benefit I could see is it's just kind of easier. not to do something like that. It's probably a lot easier not to figure out how to integrate PSN with Xbox Live and this whatever the hell the Switch's networking is, and PC and all that, than it is to just kind of just let it sit as it was. It's easier to do nothing than to do something that advances the medium.
Sure.
In that direction.
I think you're right there, and I think maybe I'm reading too deep into it, but I think that there's a few things. I think Sony, and I don't know if this is true, these are just guesses. I think Sony might be apprehensive of sharing access and any sort of code base or whatever with another hardware manufacturer. And my assumption is that if you're making a game that speaks to everything, you have to have some sort of back end into the PlayStation Network. And are they comfortable? Yeah. Are they comfortable giving like a publisher the keys to the kingdom when they're all intermingling with each other? But I don't think that can necessarily be the case, because that has to be the case when you're making multiple SKUs of a game.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Sony, or PSN more specifically, has been hacked a lot? I feel like a lot more than any other.
Yeah. The only successful, really truly successful hack of a gaming network happened.
Well, I remember on the PS3, the PSN was down for like 2 weeks or something.
It was more than that. I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah. I was like, that's never happened to anything else.
They destroyed it. I'll never forget that as long as I live, because first of all, everybody's shit got stolen. Yeah. And I remember Sony giving a press conference in Japan, and they stood up. I was like Kaz, I think, and some of the guys, and they stood up and just bowed to the press for that's like crazy. A minute, because it was like it's so embarrassing. And they were so contrite,
But do you think that has anything to do with it?
It might, yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think that it's like Occam's razor, like the most logical, the simplest explanation. It's money. Yeah. And I think until the platform holders come to some sort of consensus on how they're going to share money with each other. So I guess the thing is like, if you have a Fortnite account and you attach it to the Switch, to the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4, but then you're playing it primarily on Switch and you're buying all your shit there, but then you bring it to Sony basically gets no money out of that. And so I do think that's is fair. I think that's the sticking point. I didn't actually
think of that at all.
I think that's the sticking point. And I think they have to have some sort of like profit sharing thing between the platforms. And I think it's easy for Nintendo and Microsoft to do this because it makes them look good. They're not winning.
Yeah.
So I think you have to look. I don't think Sony's in the right here. I just think that I understand why they might be concerned from a monetary standpoint, because they might be losing dollars doing that. Most people playing Fortnite are playing on PC or PlayStation. So like why would they give a shit? Why would they throw a bone or a tether to one of their competitors?
Yeah.
There's no reason if they were in their position, they might be more interested in doing it,
And that's the thing about like being, when you're in that position, when you're in the underdog position, you tend to make more consumer-friendly choices.
Yes, absolutely. Liam Argent says, "Do you believe that Ready at Dawn will develop a sequel to The Order 1886? I hope so, as despite its flaws, it established a universe that would be a shame to be dropped after one game."
No, no.
That's your answer?
No.
Did you like The Order 1886?
I couldn't stand it. I was so upset. It was just so, I don't know. Like, people like whatever, it's subjective and all that, but I think I was just expecting something way different than what I got.
It was...
I didn't even play that on my account. It was before I had a PS4. I played it on a friend's. I borrowed it, and I was just like, what happened?
It was not good.
That was one of the biggest... I remember that was like one of the big hype machines for the PS4 initially. Was, oh my God, The Order 1886.
Yeah, because that opening trailer was awesome with them getting out of the carriage and stuff.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome.
So there's a few... I think, Chris, there's a few ways to dissect this. Ready at Dawn, actually based here, I think, in Santa Monica, is a very capable studio. And before they did The Order 1886, what they were best known for were the God of War games on PSP.
Right.
So they had this intimate relationship with Sony, and were clearly given a AAA console level game that they weren't capable of making. And I don't mean that as an insult to their talent level. They were literally not built to make this game.
No, that game was very polished. It looked really good.
Yeah, from a technical level, it was very fine.
It just wasn't what I wanted.
But I'll say this, that I think... And people that have been following me for a long time will know that from the first moment I saw it, I was like, beware.
That's how I was with No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I mean, I wish more people listened to you.
Yeah, me too.
But when I first saw... So there was a lot of weirdness with the game. So they show it at E3 that year, in 2013. And they bring me to a behind-closed-door demo at E3. And then they just show the trailer again to me. Like, it's just me. And I'm like... what the hell is, you know, what? And they were like, we have 5 minutes of an interview. And I had to spend the interview being like, is it first person? And they're like, no, it's third person. I'm like, so it's a third person shooter? And they're like, yeah, it's a third person shooter. I'm like, is it cover based? Like Gears of War? And they're like, yeah, kind of. And stuff. They're like, time's up. So then fast forward a few months, I'm in Germany for Gamescom. And they have another behind closed door demo. And they invite a bunch of people to it. And they show Galahad, who I think is his name, is the protagonist, running around a white room. And they were like, look at the way his cape moves. And look at the beautiful animations. And then they render this thing like with flags and shit. And they're like, look at the way the flags move and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. So then the next year I come to Santa Monica and see the game behind closed doors. And it's the first time the game's running. And it's running at like 5 frames a second.
Oh, no.
Like the game is running horribly. And I remember walking out of there and there was this guy at another outlet that was like, what did you think? I ran into him in the hotel lobby and I'm like, it looked fucking terrible. You know? And he's like, oh, I think it looks great. And I went and read everyone's coverage and I was like, what game did you just see? Because I just saw this game running at an inexcusable frame rate for a game that's been in development for this long. It's the first time we even ever saw it running. It was literally a corridor that I don't even think is in the game where he's like hiding behind, he's like in between 2 buildings, hiding behind cover and shooting back at some enemies and it's running like shit. And I write this scathing piece about it and everyone gets mad at me.
That's insane.
And then the game comes out the next year and it sucks. And I got hundreds, if not thousands of people that are like, you were right about the order. I'm like, yeah, I know. I tried to warn you guys. They forgot to make a game. They were obsessed with the tech. Yeah. They were obsessed with the technology.
That's what No Man's Sky is too. They built like a really cool tech demo and then just forgot.
What did you think of the lore though? I do think that the world was really cool that they built. I do think that's true.
I was just frustrated. I think the lore probably is good. I think I was just too annoyed to really get sucked in. Like I was just like irritated.
It was also short. It's like 5 hours.
Yeah, it's real short. No, I don't know.
I was disappointed in it.
Yeah.
Tyler Oldfield.
Oh wait, no, I guess do you think there's going to be a sequel?
Yeah, I didn't answer the question. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't.
It would have happened by now. First off.
Yeah, I think they would have announced it. And Ready at Dawn. People might remember that Ready at Dawn went to work on some VR stuff, and also they made a game with GameStop. That GameStop has that Game Trust label. The first game for the Game Trust label was an Insomniac game called Song of the Deep, which was a Metroidvania game. And then they released this game. Ready at Dawn's game's already out. It was some weird game where you played as like these rubber balls. It was like a multiplayer game. It was really weird. Like totally not a AAA game. So no, that's not going to happen. And I think it's important for Sony to parse the fat. You know, like the 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012 era of like a PlayStation exclusive every 2 months is not good for the ecosystem. People weren't buying any of those games. You want to make an event.
Was that like Battle Royale? Like not the Battle Royale. No, yeah, it was PlayStation All Stars. Battle
PlayStation
Royale, like
yeah, All Stars and Starhawk and like we were saying before, Twisted Metal. And even going further back, like there was a lot of weird Haze and Heavenly Sword.
I love Haze.
Some of these, do you like Haze?
No.
I knew a person that I worked with at IGN who was like contrarian to the max that loved Haze. I'm like, really?
No, it's bad.
Haze?
I just loved it because it was so jarring as to what it was.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't it about like some sort of like pollen or something, or like
you took like nectar, and you would become enhanced, or I don't know, whatever.
Very weird. So I think Ready at Dawn was just the fat that needed to be cut. Like they're good people. They worked hard on the game. I'm sure that they didn't want it to be bad, but remember that in 2015, Until Dawn, which was another PlayStation exclusive, came out and was awesome, and we're not even getting a sequel to that. So of course we're not going to get a sequel to this particular game. Tyler Oldfield says, "What innovation does Sony need to do to justify a PlayStation 5 that isn't just add more power?" What do you think?
Wow. That's actually a good question. I don't know. I feel like the consoles are starting to show their age. So I think honestly, more power is kind of all that's needed. Really,
yeah, I think it's. I
think especially with VR, I think starting to be a thing that more and more people are interested in, because there's finally games on it that people are like excited to play. Beat Saber and all these job simulators, Vacation Simulator. You need power for that. And you need power not only to do that, but to compete with what's out there already, like Oculus and Vive. So I think I don't really know. I guess crossplay would be nice, but I don't know. What do you think? Motion controls? You want motion controls back?
Yeah, bring the move. I want only move controllers. and the PlayStation Eye.
Oh my god, people forget. I think how bad that was.
I wanted to like move so bad.
Like, what do you think?
I'm reading the question again just to make sure I'm not misunderstanding, because I think you're right that more power is like the prerequisite. The thing is that I think the games could always use more power, more RAM, all that kind of stuff, more rendering power. But the thing that I'm always struck with, Chris, is that PlayStation 4 just doesn't run that well. The more it gets updated, like I'm shocked. Like 1 in 3 times I go to like even look at the PlayStation Store, I have to restart. It's like the little things like that. I'm like, you gotta fix this shit.
Are you on a Pro?
No,
I'm on a Pro. It doesn't mess up so much.
I don't want to get a Pro because I still have a 1080p TV. I don't know if it's really worth it.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't have a 4K TV. And I can't justify. I'm just one of these guys that I'm like, I don't even know if I'd see the difference, to be honest. You know,
I think you would.
But I don't.
I think you would.
I probably would. I'm probably being a little dramatic, but I'm just not a very technological guy. I don't really care.
That's fair.
About that. But I want whatever the consensus of developers need, whatever they say, like if they need more power, give it to them. If they need these other tools or other accessibility, because I think PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, because of their underlying architecture, have made making games much easier. And you can see that now because we get a shit ton of games on PlayStation 4 that we don't want.
Yeah.
But I think power is good, but it can't be power for graphical fidelity. I want power to be like, what kind of computations, what kind of AI enhancements, what kind of really robust game worlds can you do that are totally removed from the aesthetic, but make it more living and more breathing? I think would be really exciting. And that's all from computation, or that's all from the power of computation.
Yeah, computing power. And like, I had always been a proponent of this idea of like No Man's Sky, but the variation that you would see from planet to planet on one. Like, I would love to just be on one fully fleshed out planet. That'd be insane.
Yeah, that doesn't have like one biome and like one.
Yeah, that doesn't have one, like just fully like you could go around.
Right.
Because that would have been way cooler than just flying out into the atmosphere to visit a bunch of dead rocks that had nothing on them.
I didn't get that game at all. When I played it, I was like, I just don't even understand what this is supposed to be.
I saw it the first time and I thought that tech demo looks cool, and then I saw it the second time and I was like, nothing's changed. This is gonna be a problem.
That was an overpromise. You know, they got away with one, I think, there a little bit.
Yeah, they re-released it.
Yeah, they're
re-releasing it.
I think it might already be out, or it's imminent because it's coming to Xbox One.
And yeah,
lucky them. Tyler Harris said, "I'd like to hear Chris's opinions on the Destiny 2 Forsaken DLC and whether he believes it will be the shot in the arm Destiny needs to bring back its player base. Also, why do you think games journalism focuses so much on the toxicity of gamers and not the gamers like the Destiny community, which are raising over $2.3 million for charity?"
I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
I think like anything in the media right now, negativity just kind of sells. Like people don't click on articles about charities. They just don't, because they see the headline and they're like, that's nice. But they don't need to know anything else, really. It's not as engaging as it's the same thing as like reality TV. It's like you watch reality TV because it's just cancer. It's just like horrendous fighting for stupid petty reasons. And I think that translates to headlines on games websites and even just on Twitter. We were just talking about this. Everybody on Twitter is like always complaining. And it's because people like to complain. Like, that's the reality. That's the reality of it too. I love to complain. You know, I'm not above it, but I think that's why you see more reports or stories about, you know, toxic player bases and you know, and stuff like that. But I think from what I've seen, I was like really big into Destiny because I've been playing Bungie games like forever, since before Halo. I was playing like Marathon on PC and shit. It was good, and I feel like this connection to that studio that I just can't justify really. But I think the DLC looks cool. I think they're doing a lot of interesting things with it, but I just don't have a draw to go back to Destiny. I might play that weird. There's that weird multi like PvP/PvE mode that they're harping on about that looks genuinely kind of neat and kind of innovative. But outside of that, I'm so burned out. I'm so burned out on it.
Do you think? Let me ask you this, because you'll have a much better idea of this than I do. I don't play these kinds of games. I try to play Destiny alone. Is Destiny too long for this world? Because it's hard. It's hard to look at the optics, like the visible and vocal optics of it, in which people seem to hate it. Yeah. But I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe that most of the player base hates it. I just think that they're the vocal minority being the loudest.
Yeah.
but also it clearly doesn't seem to be doing as well as the first one, and there's just way more competition now, not only with the rise of Battle Royale games that are grabbing people, but you're looking at Siege, which is highly playable. You're getting the Division 2 coming up and other games of the like mind. Do you think Destiny can be, I don't want to use the word salvage, sounds so dramatic, but do you think they can salvage this brand, or do you think it's pretty much done after this?
I think they can, because I've seen far worse. Far worse. Like Rainbow Six Siege was a joke when it came out. I remember like people were like memeing on it constantly. They had the classic E3 demo launch version thing. It was just it was clowned on constantly. But now it's one of the most loved games on every platform. People love it. Destiny 2, I just think is mismanaged. I still don't think they know what it is or what people like about it. And that's fair, because it was a very odd thing when it came out. Like I can't think of a game I played before that was like that at all. But I think they just need to focus, because they got a good foundation there. The game plays well. It's just there's nothing there to do. And I think Bungie's more than capable of putting out something that is at the very least fun for a little bit and functional. So as long as they just like keep a focus on like what do people like about it, focus on that.
Right.
I don't know. I don't really know. I think it could be. I think it's going to take effort though, and I don't know if whether or not they're willing to put that effort in is it's a way different discussion.
Yeah, I think with Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Battlefield somewhat imminent, and then next year Anthem and Division 2, it's a bad time to be stumbling in this space.
Yeah,
and
no, I agree.
I think that I'll be very interested to see, without public-facing numbers, which they don't really release, how much of a stickiness and a magnetism this game continues to have when there's just going to be more robust options. I think I'm super. Again, we talked about it last week, but the Anthem Division 2 thing is going to be very interesting to me. About
the way they've placed those release dates.
We'll see how that.
The Division 2 is actually a pretty good example, because people are like excited about the Division 2, even though like the first one was kind of like, what the hell, like what, like a lot. I know a lot of people who like stopped playing immediately. And it was kind of a mess, really.
I have a very unique and almost useless opinion on the Division, because having played it by myself and not with anyone else, but I loved it. Like I was like, this game's fucking great. Yeah, I loved it.
That's fair.
I played it I played like 40 or 45 hours, I think. It was like,
I liked a lot about it. I'll say that.
Mark Thornley says, how do you be a journalist in the game industry? With the recent issues with CD Projekt Red and Shane Satterfield having issues with taking a voice recording of the Cyberpunk demo, and his defense of that, I don't agree with Shane, as CD Projekt said it was private and he released the recording anyway. What is the protocol on this? You say that Jason Schreier is one of the few doing the job to a high standard. I know this is a complex question, but interested in your response. Love your content. So do you know about this story?
I know a little bit about it. I don't know much about it.
Let me catch up the listeners to this a little bit. So Shane Satterfield, who's a personal friend of mine, is so I'm saying this, I'm not casting any aspersions towards Shane. I like Shane. I think he's a great guy and I know him. Shane was one of the big guys at Game Trailers and runs a smaller site now called Sifted, which is actually a pretty cool thing. It's SIFTD. It's supported on Patreon. It's basically like a small community of gamers that sift through content and bubble up all of the shit you need to see. So if you like go to the site and say like, I want to see only PS4 and Vita content, then you go to the site and it shows you all that. It's pretty cool. It works pretty well. He got into some hot water recently because he went to the E3 demo for Cyberpunk. Now, people saw Cyberpunk behind closed doors, but they did not release the footage. And Shane released an audio recording of the session with CD Projekt and with Warner Brothers, who is the publisher, and got a copyright strike, which is terrible because that dings your account permanently on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they withdrew it, but there was all this drama on if he did the right thing or if he didn't do the right thing. Now, I will say that Shane absolutely did the wrong thing. I've been in a million of these behind closed doors demos, and there's usually, now I would say that I would be a little more nebulous on it if it was unclear that no one told Shane or other people not to record, but according to other people in different appointments, including apparently in that appointment, they did say not to record anything. So he recorded it. He didn't sign an NDA, but there's what sometimes people call friend DA in the industry, which is like the idea of like, well, you're friendly with these guys, or they're being friendly enough to show you something, and there's a gentleman's or a ladies agreement to not show or talk about what you're seeing. I know a ton of shit that I would never tell anyone because that's the friend DA.
Yeah.
You don't want to burn a bridge. So now what Shane has done is release this, got in trouble, and burned a bridge with Cyberpunk and with CD Projekt, and that's going to screw his coverage of the game. Was it worth it? Probably not. And I don't think he did the right thing, because you just don't go into those environments when people are clearly telling you not to record, and this stuff's clearly not being released, and you release it anyway. That's not journalism.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against Shane. I love Shane, but I think he did the wrong thing. But that's that.
Yeah, and it's also just not like it's not a huge whistleblowing thing. You know, it's not really. It's just kind of like you're seeing footage or hearing footage earlier than you might otherwise.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
And it's interesting though, because Mark Thornley asks here, well, what about Jason Schreier? I always talk Jason Schreier up from Kotaku. He's one of the only journalists in the industry that does journalism that's actually good at his job. And he leaks shit all the time. But it's different, because this stuff's being leaked to him from people from afar, sometimes anonymously, sometimes from just sources. I used to leak shit like this all the time. I used to write things that people told me all the time. It's different going into the belly of the beast and then saying
doing it yourself.
Yeah,
it's like a very different animal.
Jason isn't the source of his stories, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So if someone went into that Cyberpunk thing and said, like, this is X, Y, and Z what I saw and blah, 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 and leaked it to him, then maybe there's a little bit of a differentiation there. But being the person who does it openly and brazenly, it's just different. I don't know if people are going to understand or even agree with that differentiation, but it does exist. And I did that for a long time, and it does exist. You know, if someone told me X, Y, and Z are true, don't tell anyone. Like, I'm not your source, don't tell anyone. And I'm like, okay. And then 2 months later, 2 people tell me X, Y, Z is true, then I'm going to write about it.
Yeah.
Because I have 2 other sources. So that's the difference. Games journalism is in terrible shape, though.
Yeah.
Samuel Mills says, do you think Sony will make upgrades or adjustments this generation or next to PSN as a service? As a person who owns both an Xbox One and PS4, PSN just doesn't compare to Xbox Live as a gaming service. I wouldn't say that PSN is awful. It gets the job done. It's just that Xbox Live hasn't been stellar, in my opinion, and Sony doesn't really seem to be focusing on it that much. You have way more experience with Xbox Live than me. What do you think of the differences between the networks now? I know that the differentiation has shrunk, but it still exists.
Yeah, I just think honestly, I just think because it's been going on for far longer in a more robust state, like people have been paying for Xbox Live for a long time. You know, it's ever since it launched. It was seen as like a premium service. They've had a lot of time and funding to build that infrastructure out to be something that's very robust and functional. I think it's a big reason as to why the PS3 got so majorly hacked. You know, I don't think that's like a coincidence, really. But I don't know. I think PS4 has been catching up, but I do think that the Xbox Live ecosystem is a bit more, especially now with Game Pass and backwards compatibility and all these extra like quality of life changes. It is better for your dollar, but you know it's ultimately, how often are you playing on? Like, what are you playing, really, is really what it comes down to. If you're playing on PlayStation, then obviously, like, what the fuck?
Well, it almost ties in, Chris, to what we were talking about earlier, that without Sony's first-party or exclusive focus on multiplayer games that really stress PSN, then they have less of a reason to support it. Although their biggest games on PSN, or on PlayStation generally, Grand Theft Auto, and all these games are tethered into PSN.
Yeah.
And expectations are a little different because you're paying for it on PS4. PSN on PS3 was free. That was one of the reasons why no one gave a shit about, you know, that even with PlayStation Plus, you were just getting free games and some discounts and stuff. You didn't need that to play games online, but with PS4 you do. So there's a different expectation of quality.
Yeah.
And I don't think, based on what a lot of people say, that it's been met. And I assume that a lot of that has to do with architecture and maybe is going to be built into the PS5 as well.
Yeah.
But I think it also ties into the fact that like they just don't stress the same things, but they're going to have to for their third-party partners.
Absolutely. They've also just they've had a whole generation now of, you know, being able to build that into something that people are willing to pay for, whereas prior they didn't.
Nicholas Hickman says, "Hey guys,
hey."
You see, you have a piece of paper, so you know that he's waiting for you to say hi, because he says in the parentheses, "Wait for Chris to say hi."
Oh, I didn't even read that.
Oh, all right.
I didn't even read that.
I was like, you beat me to the punch. I wanted to have a sweet pregnant pause there. We know that PS5 is under development. What do you think Sony are more likely to take inspiration from? Nintendo and the hybrid console that is the Switch, or the approach Xbox is taking with their Games Pass and streaming? What do you think? I don't think it's either of those things, but I'm curious what you think there. Like, if PS4 could be described, Chris, as for the gamers or a game machine first, or like that was kind of their focus, right? What do you think the PS5 mantra will be? Like, what do you think we're going to be talking about? You think it'll be the same?
I think so, but I think they're just gonna harp on power, especially because the Xbox One X is out. You know, and I feel like that's going to be the main thing initially. You know, but I don't know. I think. Well, he's asking, what are they most likely to take inspiration from? I think they're far less likely to take inspiration from the Switch than they are, you know, with the Xbox approach of Game Pass and that kind of thing. But I also don't think they're going to take inspiration from that either, because they're not in a position where they need to.
Right. Maybe
to sell the PS5 and to ensure their place with the PS5, they might adopt a similar thing. But I don't know about streaming. What was the question? It was like streaming?
Yeah, it says Nintendo more likely to take inspiration from Nintendo's hybrid console or Xbox's approach with Game Pass and streaming.
I don't know about streaming. Like what do you mean? Like,
well, I don't really understand this question.
PC, like the PC Play Anywhere thing, or
I guess but Sony's been doing that for a while. You can play shit on PC now. I think through PlayStation 4 and
I think PS
now is an old thing, and that's been streaming games for years. So I don't quite. I understand what you're saying here, Nicholas, but I don't think it's. I don't think you're nailing exactly what the differentiation would be between the consoles, because Sony's not going to do a hybrid console.
No,
I think so. I absolutely think it's entirely possible that there's another handheld from PlayStation. I think that that's entirely possible.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think that you can't have a hybrid console without debilitating your power.
Yeah,
and I've said it before that you're going to see that with Switch in the coming years. Switch is just not a powerful machine, and it can't run Doom the way a PlayStation 4 runs Doom. So you can only imagine what PlayStation 5 is going to do to that console. And if you had a handheld option for Vita or for PS5 that was tied into it, then you'd have to kind of go to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, you'd have to like gimp the system to make it run.
But I do think that I do think Sony would be foolish to not at least explore internally the idea of contesting the handheld space again because of the success of Switch. Something that ties intimately into PS5 that is optional.
Yeah.
You know, that might be a little expensive, but can kind of interact with it in some way. I don't think that that's above and beyond expectations. I think that that's totally possible.
I don't foresee it. I think they're just going to keep doing with. I think what they're going to do is what isn't, you know, what's not broke. Don't fix it.
Sure.
I think that's probably what the approach is going to be.
Now, Nicholas does bring up Games Pass, and I do think you're going to see something like that out of Sony next generation, but they already have streaming. So, Michael Shama says, "Hey, Colin and Chris. With the SNES and NES classics selling out each time they go up for sale, do you think it's a viable opportunity for Sony to do a similar thing for the PS1, PS2, or the more intriguing PSP? There's no way to play PS1 games on the PS4. For Sony as a profit-first company, it seems to me like a wasted opportunity to capitalize on old property. As a gamer who grew up in the PS2 era, I would love to finally visit the PS1 games and return to some of my favorite PS2 and PSP games. Love what you guys are doing and keep it up. Thank you."
Here's a better idea. Put those games out on PSN.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
There's no reason.
Yeah, there's no reason. No. There's no reason. Like the SNES, I think the reason why the NES and SNES Classic sell well is because they are so burned into the consciousness as something that is very nostalgic, and it's neat. It's more of a toy, really,
right,
than anything else. And I think a PS1 Classic could be charming, but you could already play PS1 games on the PlayStation 3. Just give us that again. Just let us do that with the machine that we paid money for and invest in constantly.
Yeah, you're
Just
absolutely
do that.
You hit the nail on the head. There's nothing else to say. Spencer Legacy says, if you could trade one PlayStation exclusive franchise for one Xbox exclusive franchise, what would you pick? I would go with Gears of War.
Yeah.
I love Gears. And I would want Gears of War, and I would give them Dreams.
That's not a fair trade at all.
Doesn't seem like an even deal. What do you think? You're more agnostic than I am.
Yeah,
but still,
I play kind of on everything.
Yeah, so you don't really have it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
it's a fun thought exercise.
It is a fun thought exercise. Let me think about it. I think I would say I'll take Uncharted and give Cameo.
Blinks
the time sweeper.
Ben asks, with The Last of Us 2 coming as soon as next year, I'm reminded of the incredible number of hours I put into the multiplayer mode online. Any thoughts on what you'd like to see added or changed to make the mode feel like a worthy sequel to the original? Did you play Last of Us Online at all?
I did. I actually enjoyed it. I don't know if they really need to add anything, because again, it's not a multiplayer focused game. So I would honestly just be happy as long as the single player is like stellar and like a leap above what we had before. I'm honestly just happy with it just being the same. just like slightly better.
I am too. I played the online mode of The Last of Us for 40 or 50 hours, which is incredible for me because you
don't play online.
I loved it. I thought it was so good. It was so different from what I had personally played in any multiplayer game before.
It was neat.
It was deliberate and silent and scary. And
it reminded...
I got scary good at it too, which was great. Like, I'm not very good at online games. Like, if my kill to death ratio is 1-to-1, I'm like thrilled, like over the moon, you know. And I was murdering fools in Last of Us online for a while, and really, really liked it a lot.
Yeah, no, that multiplayer is really like interesting, and it's I feel like the only multiplayer that I've played that was like that interesting, and it's interesting in different ways because it's like asymmetrical. Was the original Splinter Cells had this like asymmetrical multiplayer where it was like third person versus like first person guys. It was really cool, and they've never done anything with it since. It's so sad.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy with another one of what we got before. Honestly,
yeah, me too.
Is that bad? Is that bad? Is that settling?
It is in a way, I guess, but it's to what you said before. If something's not broke, don't fix it. And that was all about mood and atmosphere, and if they can just like that's such a mood and atmosphere, at least in my experience with multiplayer games, is not a common theme. No. I don't know with fucking people chattering, calling you homophobic remarks in the headset. It's hard for me to ever really feel that way when I'm playing most shooters. Matt Matlock asks, "What's Chris's favorite PlayStation exclusive?"
Ooh.
As we get to know Chris Reagan and his tastes here on Sacred Symbols.
I have a lot of weird ones from a long time ago.
Sure.
Stuff like War of the Monsters, which I think is criminally underrated. Crash Team Racing, I've said a million times. The original, I guess Metal Gear's a multi-plat now. Oh crap.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's associated with PlayStation, but yes, it is
of recent, I would say, recently, probably The Last of Us.
Yeah,
and I didn't even really like it that much.
Oh boy, we're gonna have lots of interesting conversations about that moving forward. I think some people like reach out to us.
It looks good. The second one looks good.
People have tweeted at us though, being like, how, like almost like an indignation, being like, how could you survive with a man who does, because I gave Last of Us a 10 at IGN. It was my only 10 I ever gave out. And they were like, how do you with someone that doesn't like him? I'm like, what do I care?
Here's the thing.
Like, I can't have his own opinion.
Here's the thing. I'm very aware that it is a very quality video game and it's very good. I just think when that game came out, I didn't care enough about it or like that kind of experience. I was like, I just want to play a game that's more like gameplay oriented.
Right.
At the time. I'm actually playing through The Last of Us now, the remastered. Because I have it.
Right.
I don't know how I got it, but I have it on my PS.
Was it on Plus at some point?
I think what it is I'm game sharing, and I just.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it is.
Cool.
But I'm playing through it. I'm liking it. I think I'm lost where I'm at right now, but I guess I'll figure that out.
I haven't played through the campaign. I think since like around the time it came out.
Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver also.
Nice. There's a Naughty Dog.
These
connection.
are all like really old. Really old.
Amy Hennig worked on that game.
Really? Oh yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Ah, so good.
Jazz Tureen Tyag. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I've always had the impression that reviewers should finish the game before reviewing it. This week, Jason was called out about Octopath Traveler, though he said it will finish everything before reviewing the game. And then I heard you saying that you stopped playing Ni no Kuni 2 because it got a war. And I reviewed Ni no Kuni 2 for my channel. I guess my question is, should reviewers finish the game first before reviewing it?
We kind of talked about this earlier.
We did, and this was the question that I was kind of referencing. I have a lot of experience as a critic, and I think that for the most part, yes, you should always strive to finish the game. But I also think that there are plenty of examples of games that you do not have to finish. I think there are games, specifically Japanese role-playing games, where if you play the game for 40 hours, you've seen it. I don't really know that you have anything new or unique to say. Maybe you have some end-game or side quest options that you would not get to see otherwise. But if you play a Tales game for 40 hours and you can't write a review based on that, then I can't help you. And I think that it's perfectly valid to review a game at that point.
Yeah, I think you should definitely like. I feel like you should, without a doubt, finish the overwhelming majority of things you play. Right, if you're going to review them, I would say that's pretty fair. You know, you shouldn't be like quitting half of the stuff you're reviewing.
Right.
I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think genre matters. I think runtime matters. I think a lot of those things matters. If you're playing a shooter that's 10 or 12 hours long, you have to beat it. I mean, but if you're like, there are games that literally can't be beaten, and you're still going to render a verdict on it. Like, you can't beat an MMO, really.
Yeah.
And those games are reviewed. So I think that people
even Destiny is like questionable,
right? Exactly,
the raid and stuff.
And the game changes, like they're dynamic. The scores have to remain dynamic because the games are being patched now and being updated with more content that makes them more robust. And so I think that this is a great question, but I think you kind of have to look at it through a lens of like it just really depends on the situation. I reviewed Ni no Kuni 2 after playing it for 30 something hours, and I was in the game's last chapter, and I stopped playing for God of War, and I was like, I'm perfectly capable of giving you a fair review of this.
I'm an idiot. God of War. God of War, of course. That was so good. That's probably that. No, that's
your answer for your favorite.
Okay, yes.
Favorite PlayStation. Okay.
For some reason, it escaped my mind. I forgot that masterpiece existed
that we just played 2 months ago. So yeah, do you agree with? You don't have a background as like a professional critic, but does that make sense to you? Like, the one important thing to me, Chris, about this situation is that people know. Like, I always say in my review, this is how long it took me to beat it, or this is how long I played it. Yeah. And then so you'll never find a review from me where I'm like, I didn't beat it and I'm going to hide that from you.
Yeah.
I'm always going to say like, I played it for 30 hours.
You have to know the context of the review,
right.
I think. And that's as much as you could really ask for, I think.
I'm going to skip a few of these.
Yeah.
We
got a lot.
Yeah, let's just do a few more.
Okay.
Sean Mason says, similar to the Mega Man Legacy collections, what classic games would you like to be re-released in a Legacy collection format? Having never experienced Mega Man before, it was a great way to finally experience these masterpieces. For me, it would be Castlevania. Similar to Mega Man, I have never played these games and would love to be able to dive into the series. Castlevania is definitely the next one for me.
Yeah, that would be my answer too. I feel like I've gotten every other one that I've wanted. Honestly. I've got Crash.
Yeah,
Spyro's around the corner.
Spyro. And I'm looking forward to Spyro. That's much more playable for me.
Yeah.
Like the collectathon shit as opposed to the platforming.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Castlevania would be amazing. Symphony of the Night in like one as like a part of a bigger package would be amazing.
It would be cool to see like Castlevania 1, 2, 3, and 4 in one collection, and then like the Metroidvania stuff.
Was there an Oddworld collection? Probably not.
They re-released and or remade them, I think.
Yeah, they did like new and tasty, which I don't know.
A lot of them are on Vita. So yeah, I think Castlevania is a great choice. Chris, the great thing about the Legacy Collection is not only the access to the games, because that's great, but Capcom puts a lot of love into the extras and the accoutrements that come with it, like the art and the music and
yeah,
it's really cool. Like I think that's half of what makes it so cool, and I'm so excited about the X Collections. And by the way, the X Collections both have platinum trophies, which is awesome because the Legacy Collection 1 and 2 didn't. They had garbage trophy lists, and I complained to Capcom about it like vocally and in private. So
that's cool.
So whether or not I had anything to do with this, I don't know, but I think I might have had something to do with it. Peter McChrystal says, Until Dawn 2 or Bloodborne 2?
Bloodborne.
Which will be released first, if at all? Bloodborne? Yeah,
Bloodborne.
I don't think you're going to get an Until Dawn 2. I think that Supermassive, which is the British studio that made Until Dawn, was clear that they didn't want to make a sequel, and I don't think it would have been. Did you play Until Dawn?
I did. I played it with people, which is definitely a different experience.
I think that game was fantastic.
Yeah,
like I loved it. I couldn't believe. I kept saying Supermassive out Quantic Dream. Like
I was so frustrated when that game came out though, because everybody was like, "Hey, you look like Chris from Until Dawn." Yeah. I'm like, what? And I looked him up. It's like nothing. It looks nothing like me. He just has glasses and short hair. That's it.
But you share the name.
Yeah, and the name. Good. Wow, good job.
Nathan Duwang says, any thoughts for a spoiler cast on Detroit Become Human and other PS4 exclusives and other games? Detroit Become Human's too old, but I think you can assume that Chris and I will do very game-centric episodes of the show.
Yeah.
I am playing around with the idea of maybe when Spider-Man comes out and other exclusives for us to just do an episode about just that game.
That'd be fun.
And then make it like an irregular, like a
special
episode.
I know for a fact I'm going to burn through that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm working on obviously getting us access to that, so we'll be able to do that at embargo hopefully. So we would love your feedback, and I think Chris and I are kind of on the same page that it would be fun to do more than one episode a week, every so often when it calls for it. So like Spider-Man would be a nice big 90-minute episode that's just about Spider-Man. But does that fit into a regular episode? I don't know. We have to figure that kind of stuff out. But Detroit, Detroit's too old. We're not going to do anything with that now.
Yeah.
Connor L says, what's Chris's opinion on the Vita? We're really getting to know you today.
I never had one. There was nothing on it that I adored the hell out of the PSP. I don't know why, because it was comparatively gimped, but like the PSP was just magical to me. I don't know what it was. Something about those weird UMD discs. How weird. It was just,
It was very strange.
I loved the PSP so much.
It was very strange.
But I feel like when the Vita came out, I just didn't have money, and I don't know. There was nothing on it that particularly said like, oh, I need this. And even a lot of the people that I know who at the time were like really, really big PlayStation, devotees didn't even have a Vita. So I was like, oh, well, maybe it's, I don't know.
Schmucks.
A bunch of idiots.
No, there's nothing on it that necessitates anyone having it. I think it's a great piece of hardware, but it's cool to be able to play games you can also play on PlayStation 4, and it's a very capable remote play device, which is neat. I've definitely played a lot of games remotely on it to great effect. Yeah,
that's cool. I feel like I've never been. I feel like the PSP and the DS were like the exceptions for me. Were like the time where I guess like before, like with the SP and like the Game Boy Advance, that was when I was like really into handheld systems. But immediately after the PSP, I felt like I'm satisfied. I don't think I need it.
You're satiated?
Yeah, I have a Switch, but it's almost like I have a Switch mainly because it's just an interesting piece of hardware. It just fascinates the hell out of me.
It is very cool to like take it out of the dock, put it in the dock.
Yeah,
I like it. It is very very satisfying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the last question today to Corey Christensen.
Okay.
Who says, I only play 1 to 2 games a year and play games on my schedule. Is there anything wrong with this? The hype of the games journalist makes me think you should have a backlog. I have eliminated the backlog because it doesn't make sense. I don't have to play everything, and I'll play games for the length and amount of time I like. Why should I spend a lot of money and time just to be part of the conversation? I am now getting around to Horizon Zero Dawn, and the game is fantastic. I'm happy I waited because it has all the DLC, and I paid $20 for one of the I think you mean all-time great games. It's better than Breath of the Wild in my opinion, and I just beat that game before I played this one. I agree with you. What do you think of this idea of having to play everything, of the backlog of I hate that term, being part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can be part of a conversation without having played the game. You might have a different perspective, or a useless perspective in some cases, but I agree. Like, I years ago had to let go of this idea that like I'm going to get around to this game. I'm like, I let go of that a long time ago, and games just come and go. I'm like, games would like come into my purview and be like, yeah, I'll play Darksiders too. Yeah, I'll play Assassin's Creed, whatever. And then eventually I'm like, I'm never going to play these games. Why am I even lying to myself?
Fair.
I did write down a backlog that I tweeted out the other day, or I put on Instagram like last week. And I've narrowed it down to like 15 games, like games that I really do intend to play. But even then, I don't think I'll get to almost any of them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's especially difficult now because as adults, you're very, very busy and your time is very valuable. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I still kind of have the backlog mentality where it's like, I have to finish this. But I just like Detroit Become Human. I'm stressed because I haven't finished it. And then I can't because I'm playing it with my girlfriend.
Right. And then you're going to get to the point where you have to start it over again or something because you don't know what the hell's going on.
I fear that's what's going to happen with Prey. I feel like I'm going to get far into Prey and then I'm going to just forget what the hell I was doing. That happened with Skyrim for me. The first time I played it. I played it for a long time and then I stopped and then I went back to it and I was like, I don't remember what I was doing or how I did it.
It's a hard thing. You have to. It's being consistent and sticking with a game and not being like ADD about it, which I think a lot of us are.
Oh yeah, I bump between games a lot.
Yeah,
I play for like 10 maybe 5 minutes, and then I'm like, I'm not feeling this. I'll jump to this. My God, it's so bad.
It's tough. So I think you're right on the money with the idea of like eliminating the backlog, eliminating expectations. Play games as they come to you. Chris and I are more intimately connected because of the show and our proximity to the industry and all that kind of stuff. We play a lot of games, but that's not the experience of most people. And there's almost a vicarious amount of living by listening to a podcast like this to be like, well, what are the people that are playing games playing? And I think you shouldn't put any pressure on yourself to meet any goal or quota.
Yeah.
It's about if you're having fun. If you're having fun just playing Minecraft for 3 years, then just play Minecraft. I'm not judging you. It doesn't make you any less of a gamer to me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm still playing like really, really old, really old things.
Yeah, we'll jump on the grenades for you. Don't worry about that. So, Chris, that's it for this episode.
Yeah,
kind of a slow week. Not too much news.
Yeah, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah,
I mean we're like in the dead of summer right now.
So yeah, so forgive us if this was a little bit of a slow podcast for you guys. We're doing the best we can with the information. I could make things up next time if you want.
We'll just have a whole day that's like fake news.
Yeah, just all fake news, just a bunch of shit that's totally made up. poisoning the minds of thousands and thousands of listeners.
Oh my God.
We appreciate you very much. Thank you for your kindness and your generosity. Remember, if you want to submit a question to the show, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. $2 and up a month subscribers and supporters there have access to a thread each week where these questions come from, so you can do that. If you want early ad-free access to every episode of Sacred Symbols, again, ad-free and 3 days before the public feed, support the show at $5 or up a month. That's the cost of a $60 retail game every year. You get 52 episodes of Sacred Symbols at least early, ad-free, and a bunch of other perks. I think it's a pretty good deal, personally. So go check us out there. And if you're listening to us on free feeds, we really do appreciate that. Thank you for that. Consider leaving us reviews and kind comments. It does help us algorithmically.
Yeah, no, it's a huge, huge boost.
We are still in the iTunes top 10 in games and hobbies.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. It really does help us. So, consider doing that. Even if you support us on Patreon, going over there and subscribing and just leaving us a nice review, it goes a long way, and we thank you for that. Chris, any big plans for the week?
Not really. I feel like I'm just like really... All I can think about is when Spider-Man's coming out and how it's like a month and a half away.
Yeah, it's close. It's very exciting.
I need it.
It's very exciting. It looks great.
But I can't think of just like more gym, more writing, more figuring little adult things out.
Yeah, the new video is great. You guys can go check that out on Chris's YouTube channel, Chris Reagan's YouTube channel.
Hey, appreciate it.
Really, really funny video. I watched it the other day. Your videos do more traffic than like one video of yours does more traffic than like 10 of my videos. It's funny, so.
It's because I never posted. People are like, "What the hell? He's still alive?"
It's great. So congratulations on that. I thought the new one was very funny.
Thanks, man.
So go check that out. Support Chris and his endeavors as well. And we'll see you next week for more Sacred Symbols and hopefully have some more actual tangible news to talk about.
Yeah. Although, things will start picking up in fall.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like hectic in fall. I'm almost so sure.
I'm excited about it, and we're happy and honored, frankly, to lean on your questions in the meantime. So it's not a big deal at all. So keep those coming. Keep the support coming on Patreon. And, spread the word. Thank you for your kindness. We really do appreciate you. Hope you have a great week. See you next time. Bye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. Harshiv Bahia, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Spencer Brand, Isaac Brewer, Lennon Brixey, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Andrew Burkhart, John Burry, Alex Cabrera, Will Caldwell, Luis Cancato, Matthew Canoy, Shermer Carter, William Cashel, Brian Chan, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, Kenneth Charr, David Chestnut, Steve Clifford, Dan Clifford, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Mitchell Durkash, Luke Drake, David Ellis, Eric Finkenbeiner, Michael Fiore, Connor Gazian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Richard Green, Ryan Greenwood, Miranda Grubba, Andres Guzman, Tyler Harris, Wyatt Henry, Andrew Hess, Josh Yeager, Paul Joyce, Jeremy Key, Nathaniel Khalil, Taylor Christian Laudrin, Donald Laws, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Lewin Ray Loper, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, John McManus, Joe McPartlin, Mike Menzel, Albert Miranda, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Connor Nesbitt, Josh Netzel, Adam Nix, Adam O., Brian Ott, Jorge Palomino, Reed K. Parker, Todd Paxton, Brendan Peavy, Marius Scarzam Peterson, Enrique Perez, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Lawrence F. Prokop, Eric R. Pryor, Jordan Ray, Ryan Reeves, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Austin Riley, Ryan Robertson, Ramon Rodriguez Jr., Petro Rose, Michael Sanchez, Matthew Savoy, John Schultz, Chris Schaefer, Mike Shaw, Rayanne Scheinebarger, Toby Shootman, Gurman Sadhu, Jordan Smith, Riley Smith, Alexander Suarez, Ahmad Tamar, Tam Tran, Kevin Van Ekeren, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Chris Wong, Michael Wells, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Supershot ST, Casual Misfits Gaming, Mad Mock Media, Beric, Mubarak, Dav9834, Chris, Donk2015, and Random Guy Radio.